to the greatest.
Because we have limited resources and so many different avenues that require work for preventing zebra mussel invasion, early detection, developing capacity, and it's critical that states, other federal agencies, tribes, the private sector are all working together and all on the same page.
If you're a boater, seaplane operator, or water-based equipment provider, you need to take direct personal responsibility to thoroughly clean, drain, and dry your watercraft and equipment between uses. If you're a water resource manager, you need to implement prevention programs to safeguard those resources and encourage and support your neighbors to do the same. And even if you're only a food, water, and power consumer, you need to encourage and support Dreissenid mussel prevention and control efforts through your elected representatives. Minimizing the impact of these invaders on our lives and pocketbooks will require a team effort. Please do your part and stop aquatic hitchhikers.
What do you guys want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
1, 2, ready, go. Gonna pull the stops, gonna make it go. Drop down, gag you bound, just sitting down and getting nowhere. You're living on a wing and a prayer. Gonna put them things together. You know it's now or never. You're building a Don't stop, baby.
What do you guys want to do now?
Don't stop, baby.
For 100 years, Memorial Continental Hall, with its white marble columns and sweeping porticos, has been a familiar sight to residents and visitors to the nation's capital. Located just 2 blocks from the White House in downtown Washington, D.C., Memorial Continental Hall's prominent location and exquisite design lend to its mystery and intrigue, often raising questions about what the building is, who it belongs to, and the purpose it serves. Memorial Continental Hall was built in 1905 by the Daughters of the American Revolution to serve as the organization's national headquarters and as a place to hold their annual convention, DAR Continental Congress. The vision and planning of Memorial Continental Hall began almost immediately following the founding of the DAR in 1890. At just the second meeting of the organization, DAR founder Mary Smith Lockwood proposed the idea that the Society build a fireproof building for its headquarters to safeguard the relics and papers that the members proposed to preserve. President General presiding Mary Elliott Cabell shortly thereafter described the intended purpose of the building.
What the Society needs most and first is a home. The women of America want a house where their historic records can be lodged, a spacious hall where debates and addresses can take place, fireproof apartments where the relics and treasures of the Society can be preserved, a commodious place of business where officers and members can meet for the transaction of their affairs.
Raising funds to build Memorial Continental Hall was a mammoth undertaking, but the daughters went at it with typical determination, organization, and imagination. States and chapters sponsored a variety of events, including use of penny boxes, wherein each chapter was to save a penny a day for a year, then send the money to Washington. Once the architectural plan was in place, parts of the building were subscribed and funded for naming rights. The larger, more populous state societies paid for entire rooms, while smaller states funded items like windows, stair rails, or doors. By the First Continental Congress in 1892, the Society had collected $650, an amount that would grow to $109,000 by 1902. The DAR Building Committee, charged with finding a location, explored numerous Washington area sites before finally settling on a somewhat unfashionable and semi-rural part of the city called Foggy Bottom. Because the area was once swampland, some members expressed concerns about both the health and structural risks of locating the building on the site. Senator James McMillan, chairman of the Senate Subcommittee on the Improvement of the Park System, wrote to the DAR President General, assuring her that the area being considered would be an excellent location, and that 17th Street would be one of the great park approaches and a thoroughfare of importance. Reassured, the DAR purchased the several lots that made up the block bounded by 17th, 18th, C, and D Streets. Senator McMillan's plan for developing the area had at its core the basic design for the city of Washington, created by Pierre L'Enfant in 1791. McMillan enhanced his plan to incorporate elements of the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, which captured the nation's interest in the concept of what was called the White City because of the color of the buildings. Many DAR members who had worked on or visited the Chicago Exposition encouraged the White City concept as a model for the facade of Memorial Continental Hall. A national competition to select an architect was established. Members rejected a number of designs in their pursuit for a structure that could be functional and serve as an exquisite memorial to their Revolutionary Patriot ancestors. Edward Pierce Casey, who had designed the interior of the Library of Congress, was ultimately chosen as the architect. His winning design for Memorial Continental Hall was in the classical revival style of the Beaux-Arts. Work on the hall progressed relatively quickly, and the central core of the building containing the auditorium was built by 1905. Finally, on April 17, 1905, the daughters met in their new home and officially dedicated Memorial Continental Hall. It would be another 4 years before the hall was complete enough to be occupied by the Society's offices. When Memorial Continental Hall was finally completed in 1910, the stately facade set the precedent of beauty for its soon-to-be neighbors. The Pan American Union, now called the Organization of American States, and the American Red Cross both began construction within a few years after the hall was built. The memorial portico on the south side of the building is dedicated to the 13 original colonies. The portico consists of 13 monolithic columns, each with the name of one of the original colonies carved at the base. The floor plan of the hall's interior incorporated 3 central features. The auditorium was the most elaborate room in the building, bringing the monumental character of the exterior inside. Box seats overlook the stage and are capped by majestic, outstretched American eagles. The DAR Library flanked the auditorium in the North Gallery, and the DAR Museum flanked it in the South Gallery. All were surrounded by offices for the various national DAR officers, committees, and staff. While much of the original interior has been altered, some areas are strikingly similar to the original design. The grand entrance, the Pennsylvania foyer, is classically clad in Vermont marble, featuring a medallion of the Pennsylvania state seal and busts representing American Revolutionary heroes. The lavish Connecticut boardroom on the second floor contains elaborate woodwork and crystal chandeliers. The banquet hall opens to a terrace on top of the memorial portico, providing an amazing view of the city. Less than 10 years after the building's completion, the DAR began construction on a new administration building to serve as the organization's business center. The rooms that had been the offices for the early workings of the society were offered back to the states in order to be decorated to accurately reflect a specific time, place, and authentic interior decor. The ever-expanding DAR eventually outgrew the Memorial Continental Hall auditorium. Plans got underway to build a larger auditorium to hold the annual Continental Congress. In 1929, Constitution Hall, able to seat 4,000 people, was opened. By 1949, the organization's adjoining buildings took up an entire city block. The museum gallery moved into the new administration building, and the Memorial Continental Hall Auditorium became the DAR Library. Many important local and national events have taken place in Memorial Continental Hall, but none more important than the Conference on the Limitation of Armament. President Warren Harding opened the conference on November 12, 1921. The conference brought together the major Allied naval powers from across the world to discuss a reduction in the size and armament of their navies, and to ensure security in the Pacific. When the conference ended on February 6, 1922, the delegates had signed 3 major treaties and several separate agreements. Memorial Continental Hall was designated a National Historic Landmark specifically because of the conference. Memorial Continental Hall has also served as home base for DAR members' volunteer efforts over the years. During World War I, DAR members formed a volunteer partnership with the American Red Cross. When the nation entered the Second World War, the National Society made Memorial Continental Hall available for war service almost immediately. The building became the site of many Red Cross offices. The DAR also sponsored a war service center open to servicemen 6 days a week. Today, this designated National Historic Landmark is still the epicenter of a dynamic DAR. The 170,000 square foot building houses one of the world's most important genealogical libraries, an extensive collection of antique home furnishings displayed in period rooms, and glamorous spaces available to the public for an array of different occasions. Members and the public alike come to Memorial Continental Hall to immerse themselves in genealogical research and to visit the museum period rooms. The beautiful O'Byrne Gallery is one of the most elegant venues in Washington, D.C., regularly hosting special events such as meetings, receptions, and weddings. Memorial Continental Hall's resemblance to the White House also makes it a desirable location for shooting feature films such as Suspect, The Distinguished Gentleman, and National Treasure, as well as television programs, notably The West Wing, have featured Memorial Continental Hall. Just as they did in the early years, U.S. presidents come to the hall for a variety of reasons. President George W. Bush used the 100-year-old Brass Eagle podium, once located on the Memorial Continental Hall stage, for his inaugural luncheon in 2005. Memorial Continental Hall continues to be a primary venue for many important world and national events. A century of history is tucked away in every crevice and corner of the immense Memorial Continental Hall. And the vision of those early daughters of the American Revolution will continue to be a reminder of this country's glorious past and promising future.
He looked down into her brown eyes, said, say a prayer for me. whispered God will keep us free. They could hear the riders coming, said this is my last fight. If they take me back to Texas, they won't take me back alive. Everybody sing with me now. 7 Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the valley of the gun. When the battle stopped and the smoke cleared, there was thunder from the throne. 7 Spanish angels took another angel home. He reached down and picked that gun up, lay smoking in his hand. Said, Father, please forgive me, I can't make it without my man. She knew that gun was empty, she knew she couldn't win. Her final prayer was answered when the rifle fired again. Everybody. 7 Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the valley of the gun. When the battle stopped and the smoke cleared, there was thunder from the throne. 7 Spanish angels took another angel home. 7 Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the valley of the gun. When the battle stopped and the smoke cleared, there was thunder from the throne. 7 Spanish angels took another angel home. 7 Spanish angels took another angel home. Cowboy Chuck from Boulder City.
Hey, I wonder what the power is I do have over me. I guess I'd never love you long, just your memory. And I make a vow each time you live, and it will draw the line. And you come back, and just like now, call in one more time. One more time, my lips may kiss you. One more time, my arms will hold you. But it won't be long until you're gone, with a memory left behind. I just know that when you go, I'll be lonely one more time. Your newness makes me wake up, and I'll give in to you. And I'm doing all the things I said that I wouldn't do. And I make a vow each time you live, and it will draw the line. And you come back, and just like now, fall in one more time. One more time, my lips will kiss you. One more time, my arms will hold you. But it won't be long until you're gone, the memory left behind. I just know that when you I'll be lonely one more time. I just know that when you go, I'll be lonely one more time.
Yo! Sing him a song, Chuck. Dear Chuck. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my arms. When I awoke, dear, I was mistaken. So I hung my head and I cried. Everybody sing. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away. Cowboy Chuck from Boulder City.
You cut that.
Where you at? I'll try Charlie's Shoes.
All right.
I'd like to be in Charlie's shoes. That's what I've always said. 'Cause he had you and everything tied with a golden thread. Well, old Charlie left and went away, and then I got the news. Wasn't long till I was round in Charlie's shoes. Now I'm wearing out the shoes that Charlie wore. Well, I'm walking back and forth across the floor. The troubles that go him away, I've got for company. These nights in Charlie's shoes are killing me. The greener grass that turned my head so smooth, it turned round. And every little dream I built, she's always tearing down. I never knew old Charlie's shoes could have so many ties. A disappointing sorrows and I wish he had them back. Now I'm wearing out the shoes that Charlie wore. Walking back and forth across the floor. The troubles that drove him away, I've got for company. These nights in Charlie's shoes killing me. Yes, these nights in Charlie's shoes are killing me.
Charlie wears boots, though. Okay, another Ray Price. Pride. I think it's called Pride. You ready? Ready for this one?
I'm always ready.
It's a fast one. Look at it. You know that you're doing lots of things that ain't right. You're out with a different party almost every night. And you're making me look like a crazy fool. So why do I have these doubts about being you? Big, but know. My heart tells me stay, but my pride tells me go. Can you play the beat? I'd be so much better off to drive you from my mind and make you a memory that I'd like to leave behind. I know that these heartaches are what you will put me through. So why do I have these doubts about leaving you? Because my heart tells me stay, but my pride tells me go. And how can I leave you when I love you so? Which way should I turn? I'd sure like to know. My heart tells me stay, but my pride tells me go. My heart tells me stay, but my pride tells me go. Hello. 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 How old is Smitty? I know it.
I would have thought you.
Maybe I didn't love you all those lonely, lonely times. Maybe I never told you I'm so happy that you're mine. Little things I should have said and done, I never took the time. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. Maybe I didn't hold you all those lonely, lonely times. Maybe I never told you I'm so happy that you're mine. Little things I should have said and done, I never took the time. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. Tell me your sweet love hasn't died. Give me one more chance to keep you satisfied. I'll keep you satisfied. Little things I should have said and done, girl, I never took the time. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. Thank you much.
Hey, Jim.
Young and
Do it, G. Heartache number one was when you left me. I never knew I could hurt you. And heartache number two was you back again. You came back but never meant to stay. Now I've got heartaches by the number, troubles by the score. Every day you love me less, each day I love you. Yes, I've got heartaches by the number, that I can't win. But the day that I stop counting, that's the day my world will end.
heartache number 3 was you called me and said that you were coming back to stay. With hopeful heart I waited for your knock on the door. I waited, but you must have lost your way. Now I've got heartaches by the number, troubles by the score. Every day you love me less, each day I love you more. Yes, I've got heartaches by the number, a love that I can't win. Up the day that I stop counting, that's the day my world will end.
All right.
Yeah. I think that's plenty loud. Just loud enough over there then. You hear that already?
Sounds great.
Yeah. Devil Woman.
Okay. Down just a
I told Mary about thoughts about her patient. Mary cried and forgave me. Mary took me back again. Said if I wanted my freedom, I could be free evermore. But I don't want to be, and I don't want to see Mary cry anymore. Oh, devil woman, devil woman, devil woman, let me be. Devil woman, let me be. Leave me alone, I want to go home. Mary's waiting and weeping down in our shack by the sea. Even after I've hurt her, Mary's still in love with me. Devil woman, it's over. Trapped no more by your charms. 'Cause I don't want to stay and I'll get away from Mary and open your arms. Oh, devil woman, devil woman, let me be. Devil woman, let me be. Leave me alone, I want to go home. Running along by the seashore, running as fast as I can. Even the seagulls are happy, glad I'm coming home again. Never again will I ever cause another tear to fall. Down the beach I see what belongs to me, the one that I want to go. Oh, devil woman, devil woman, let me be. Devil woman, let me be. Leave me alone, I want to go home. Oh, devil, let me be. Leave me alone, I want to go home. Yeah, I cut that song in half. It's too long. Songs are long.
I like her down on the beach sifting sand.
Yeah. All day, all night, Marianne.
Yeah.
You remember that song? Yeah.
Oh, me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jen. Okay.
You're the one that said we was going counterclockwise.
Yeah.
You forget where we was?
Yeah.
When we're all alone, dear, and I'm in your arms, are you teasing me? When you're telling me you thrill to my charm, are you teasing me? Are you untrue when I'm not with you? When we're apart, are you free? Tell me, darling, why our love is still still young? Are you teasing me? Are you untrue when I'm not with you? When we're apart, are you free? Tell me, darling, why our love is still young? Are you teasing me? You tell me my kisses set your heart in a whirl, and that you'll be mine till the end of this world. Tell me, darling, why our love is still young? Are you teasing me? Tell me, darling, are you teasing me? Thank you much.
Hey, Price, Crazy Arms. I'm gonna get that one for you. Smitty gets it.
What you in?
D.
D?
I'm in me. Now blue ain't the word for the way that I feel. There's a storm brewing in this heart of mine. This ain't no crazy dream, I know that it's real. You're someone else's love now, you're not mine. Crazy arms that seek to hold somebody new, but my burning heart keeps saying you're not mine. My trouble, I know, soon to another you'll be new, and that's why I'm lonely all the time. Please take these treasured dreams I had for you and take all the love I thought was mine. This ain't no crazy dream, I know that it's real, and that's why I'm lonely all the time. Crazy arms that seek to hold somebody new, but my burning heart keeps saying you're not mine. My trouble, I know, soon to another you'll be with, and that's why I'm lonely all the time. Crazy arms that seem to hold somebody new, but my burning heart keeps saying you're not mine. My trouble, I know, soon to another you'll be with, and that's why I'm lonely all the time. And that's why I'm lonely all the time.
Yeah, we got to hurry with that.
Yeah, that's a...
I'm 1,000 miles from nowhere. Don't matter to me. I'm 1,000 miles from nowhere. Don't inside one baby. I've got heartaches in my pocket. I got echoes in bruises on my memory. I got tear stains on my hands, and in the mirror there's a vision of what it used to be a man. Oh, thousand miles but no plan. Time don't matter to me. I'm 1,000 miles from nowhere. There's no place that I wanna be. I've got heartaches in my pocket. I got echoes in my head, and all the things I keep hearing are the cruel, cruel things you say. That's a fade out.
In the twilight glow, I see you. Blue eyes crying in the rain. When we kissed goodbye and parted, I knew we'd never meet again. Love is like a dying ember, and only memories remain. Through the ages I'll remember. Blue eyes crying in the rain.
Take it, man.
Someday when we meet up yonder,
all right,
we'll stroll hand in hand again in that land that knows no parting. Blue eyes crying in the rain. Someday when we meet up yonder, we'll stroll hand in hand again in that land that knows no parting. Blue eyes crying in the rain. I said blue eyes crying in the rain. Thank you much. Cowboy Chuck.
Old Jim Reeves song. Have I told you lately that I love you? Have I told you lately that I love you? Could I tell you once again somehow? Have I told with all my heart and soul how I adore you? Well, darling, I'm telling you now. My heart would break if I Have I told you lately how I miss you? When the stars are shining in the sky, have I told you how I'd like to share my love forever? Well, darling, I'm telling you now, my heart would break too if I should lose you. I'm no good without you anyhow. Dear, have I told you lately that I love you? Well, darling, I'm telling you now. Yes, darling, I'm telling you now.
Smitty from Boulder City. Cowboy Smitty from Boulder City.
Rhymes.
Smitty from Boulder City. That goes good, don't it? Just give him a new name.
Oh, yeah. How about Neon Moon Brooks and
Okay.
kick her up a notch? It's just in G, Joe. Just in G. Don't have a runaway. When the sun goes down on my side of town, it's lonesome feeling come to my door. The whole world turns blue. There's a rundown bar across the railroad track. I got a table for two, waiting to find. I sit along, think of losing you. I spend most every night beneath the light of that neon moon. Now if you're losing your one and only, and if you're only for the lonely, to want a broken dream dancing out of the veins of that neon moon. I think of two young lovers running wild and free. I close my eyes and sometimes say in the shadow of this moon. No telling how many tears I've sat here and cried, or how many lies that I've lied dead in my poor heart. He'll come back someday, but I'll be alright as long as there's light from that neon moon. Now if there's losing you one and only, there's always room here for the lonely, to want a broken dream dancing out of the veins of that neon moon. Play song, drink by drink. The words of these sad songs seem to say what I think. This funk inside of me, they ain't never gonna end. But I'll be alright as long as there's light from that neon moon. Now if you're losing your one and only, there's always room here for the lonely, to want a broken dream dancing out of the veins of that neon moon. Now if you're losing one and only, there's only
Acorn in a bar in Toledo, across from the depot. On a bar stool she took off her ring. I thought I'd get get closer, I walked on over. I sit down and ask her name. When the drink finally hit her, she says, I'm no quitter. I finally quit living on dreams. I'm hungry for laughter, whatever's after. I'm after whatever the other life brings. I looked in the mirror, I closely watched him. I thought how he looked out of place. He walked to the woman who sat there beside me. He had a strange look on his face. He was big as a mountain, his big hands were calloused. For a minute I thought I was dead. He started shaking, his big heart was breaking. He turned to the woman and said, you picked a fine time to leave me, Lucy. 4 hungry children and the crops in the field. I've had some bad times to live through some sad times, but this time your hurting won't heal. You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucy. He finally left us. I ordered more whiskey. She said, let's go have a ball. From the lights of that bar room to a rented motel room, we walked without talking at all. She was a beauty, but when she came to me, she must have thought I'd lost my mind. I couldn't hold her for the words that he told her kept running back time after time. He picked a fine time to leave me, Lucy. 4 hungry children and the crops in the field. I've had some bad times, I lived through some sad times, but this time your hurting won't yield. You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucy. You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucy. Thank you much.
Thanks, so. Say hey, good looking in Charlie. See. Say hey, good looking. What you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me? Hey, sweet baby, don't you think maybe find a brand new recipe? I got a hot rod Ford and a $2 bill. I know a spot right over the hill where the soda pop and the dancing's free. If you wanna have some fun, come along.
candy kisses wrapped in paper means more to you than any of mine. Candy kisses wrapped in paper, you'd rather have them any old time. You don't mean it when you whisper those sweet love words in my ear. Candy kisses wrapped in paper means more to you than my new dear. I built a castle out of dreams, dear. I thought that you were building one too. Now my castle all have fallen, and I'm left alone and blue. Once my heart was filled with gladness, now there's sadness and only tears. Candy kisses wrapped in paper mean more to you than my new year. Mean more to you than my new year.
Good job. Do a Hank song for Chuck. You might have to take it over, Chuck.
Which one is it?
Today I passed through the street, and my heart fell at your feet. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. Somebody else by his side, and he looks so satisfied. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. A picture from the past can slowly steal as I brushed your arm and walked so close to you. Then suddenly I got that old time feeling. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. It's hard to know another lips will kiss you and hold you just the way I used to do. Oh, heaven only knows how much I miss you. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. One more time. No, I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. Good job. All right.
Let's try that. Try it. Send me the pillow you dream on in A.
Send me the pillow that you dream on. Don't you know that I still care for you? Send me the pillow that you dream on. So darling,
shelter song.
Oh, yeah.
This was way back in their part of the country where they have all that road rage. Driving down the interstate, running 30 minutes late, singing Margarita and I'm minding my own. Long-legged attitude, no-gauge attitude, rode up beside me talking on the cell phone. Held together landing like I did something wrong. Flipped me the bird, then I was gone someday, somewhere. There's a big umbrella, and bottle and break over an empty chair. One breeze are blowing, there'll be two blowing. I picture myself right there on some beach. Somewhere. I circled the parking lot trying to find a spot. Just begun up like a park my whole truck. A man with a big cigar was getting into his car, stopping and waiting for him to back up. From out of nowhere a Mercedes-Benz came cruising up, went right in some beach somewhere. There's nowhere to go when you've gone all day to get there. There's no margarita, hot senorita, smiling the don't care on some beach somewhere. I sat in that waiting room, it seemed like all afternoon. There was no sign, he said, the cop's ready for you. You're not gonna feel a thing, I'll give you some Novocaine. That tube will be fine in a minute or two. She tucked that needle down deep in my gum. We started drilling before I was known someday, somewhere. There's a beautiful sunset burning up the atmosphere. Music and dancing, loving, romancing, salting up skin-dyed air on some beach somewhere. On some beach. That's a some beach song.
All right. I was trying to do Freddie Fender, but I can't do it.
You guys remember a $2 bill?
Nope, but go for
We
it.
didn't. Remember a $2 bill? That's an old one. Maybe we better find something else. You remember $2 bill?
I'll probably get it as soon as
I had one.
G. Easy to do.
Want all my money but a $2 bill. $2 bill or a $2 bill. Want all my money but a $2 bill. And I'm on my long journey home. Cloudy in the west and it looks like rain. Looks like rain, Lord, it looks like rain. Cloudy in the west.
Pass me by. Would you look at what came down the road today? One made to be, one more mistake you've made. A bridge to burn to get to someone new. Hey, pass me by if you're only pass it through. You sure look like the traveling kind to me. Don't stop if this ain't where you want to be. Now I don't know what you think you'll run into. Hey, pass me by if you're only pass it through. I'm not gonna be your stepping stone among the other hearts that you walked on. Lord help me if I fall in love with you. Hey, pass me by if you're only pass it through. Hey, pass me by if you're only pass it through.
Pearson, walking my dog. Well, I'm walking the dog, and I never blew. I'm walking the dog, ain't thinking about you. I don't need no one to tie me down. I'm walking the dog, I'm a pain the town. Such an easy life I never knew until that day that I left you. Well, I'm a carefree lad that's seen the light. I'm a walking the dog all the day and all night. Well, I'm full of strength, I just can't go. I got a one-track mind, so I've been told. But I'm fancy free, I don't worry no how. Well, I'm a walking the dog all along the line. Such an easy life I've never knew until that day that I left you. Oh, I'm a carefree lad that's seen the light. I'm walking in a holiday and all night.
How about old Bob Wills? Faded Love.
Yeah.
You read it?
I like
Did
that.
we do that before?
No. Eat?
You need, yeah. I hope I did it.
As I look at the letter that to me were so sweet. I remember our faded love. I miss you, darling, more and more every day, as heaven would miss stars above. With every heartbeat, I still think of you and remember our faded love. As I think of the past and all the pleasures we had, I watch the making of the dove. It was in the springtime that you said goodbye. I remember our faded love. I miss you, darling, more and more every day, as heaven would miss stars above. With every heartbeat, I still think of you and remember our faded love. And remember our faded love.
Well, I'm thinking tonight of my blue man who is sailing over the sea. Yes, I'm thinking tonight of her own, and I wonder if she ever thinks of me. Would have been better for us both had we known in this wide, wicked world never met. For the pleasure we both seen together, I'm sure love I'll never forget. Yes, I'm thinking tonight of my blue who is sailing over the sea. Yes, I'm thinking tonight of her only, and I wonder if she ever thinks of me. Oh, you told me once, dear, that you loved me. You said that we would part, but a link in the chain has been leaving me with a sad, aching heart. When the cold grave shall enclose me, will you come, dear, and shed just one tear? Will you say to the strangers all around, a poor heart you have broken lies here? Yes, I'm thinking tonight of my blue eyes who is sailing over the sea. Yes, I'm thinking tonight of her only, and I wonder if she ever thinks of me. Yes, I wonder if she ever thinks of me. What's the name, son?
I think I've got a
Heartache by the number.
No, I think I don't know if this is
Heartache number one. You left me.
They just don't know how lost I feel without you. My teardrops never see the light of day. I'm laughing joke each time they talk about you. But if they hurt my heart, then you're insane. Excuse me, I think I've got a heartache. There's an aching deep inside, and it just won't be denied. Excuse me, I think I've got a heartache, and I'd better say goodbye before I cry. I guess it's pride that makes me hide my sorrow. I live a lie and all I do is say. My lip may lie in pain to bright tomorrow, but if I told the truth, I'd have to say, excuse me, I think I've got a heartache. There's an aching deep inside, and it just won't be denied. Excuse me, I think I've got a heartache, and I'd better say goodbye before I cry. And I'd better say goodbye before I cry. Oh, buddy.
Thought I was. I got up.
What do you play?
Me and Bobby McGee.
busted back in Baton Rouge.
Yep. From the coal mines of Kentucky to the California sun, Bobby shared the secrets of my soul. Standing right beside me, Lord, doing everything I'd done. And at night she kept me from the cold. Somewhere near Salinas, Lord, I let her slip away. Looking for that home, I'd hope she'd find it. I'd trade my tomorrows for a single yesterday, holding Bobby's body next to mine. Freedom is another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free. Life was easy living when Bobby was with me. Feeling good was good enough for me. Oh yeah, good enough for me and Bobby McGee. From the coal mines of Kentucky to the California sun, Bobby shared the secrets of my soul. Standing right beside me, Lord, doing everything I'd done. And at night she kept me from the cold. Somewhere near Salinas, Lord, I let her step away. Looking for that home, I hope she'd find it. My body next to mine. Freedom is another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free. Life was easy living, Lord, when Bobby was with me. Feeling good was good enough for me. Oh yeah, good enough for me and Bobby. Bobby McGee. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Good enough for me and Bobby McGee. Yes, good enough for me and Bobby McGee. Thank you much.
You got the law.
Cowboy Jack.
I had a couple. Remember that song?
Yep. Love, cheat, and lie.
Don't let me cross over cheating line. I'm tempted, my darling, to steal you away. Don't let me cross over, stay out of my way. You know that I love you, and I'm not stealing mine. But not worth the heartache, treating one. Don't let me cross over the cheating line. You belong to another and can never be mine. I know one step closer would be heaven divine. Don't let me cross over the cheating line. I tried to forget you, but what else could I do? When your eyes keep saying that you love me too. I know if I lose you, not a dream will I've left. Don't let me cheat you, I can't help myself. Don't let me cross over love cheating line. You belong to another and can never be mine. I know one step closer would be heaven divine. Don't let me cross over cheating line. Don't let me cross over cheating line.
Oh boy.
Bobby Bear.
Bobby Bear.
Detroit Street.
I wanna go home. I wanna go home. Oh, how I wanna go home. Last night I went to sleep in Detroit City, and I dreamed about those cotton fields and home. I dreamed about my mother, dear old papa, sister, and brother. I dreamed about those girls who've been waiting for so long. I wanna go home. I wanna go home. Oh, how I wanna go home. Home folks think I'm big in Detroit City. From the letters that I write, they think I'm fine. But by day I make the cars, by night I make the bars. If only they could read between the lines. I wanna go home. I wanna go home.
Bobby.
Beautiful.
Bobby Bear.
Good job. Indeed.
Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone. Let's pretend that we're together all alone until the man turned the jukebox way down low, and you can tell from there with you he'll have to go. Whisper to me, tell me, do you love me true? Or is he holding you the way I do? Though love is blind, make up your mind, I've got to know. Could I hang up? Will you tell him? You'll have to know. Put your sweetness a little closer to the phone. Let's pretend that we're together all alone until the man turned the jukebox way down, and you can tell when they're with you, you'll have to go. You can't say the words I want to hear while you're with another man. If you want me, answer yes or no, darling, I'll understand. Put your sweetness a little closer to the phone. Let's pretend that we're together all alone until the man turned the jukebox way down low, and you can tell when they're with you, you'll have to go. You can tell when they're with you, you'll have to go.
I've tried so hard to get you off my mind, but it seems you left too much of you behind. Memories of the past get in my way. I keep looking forward to tomorrow and finding yesterday. You're in every cup of coffee and in every glass of wine. Each song on the jukebox sounds like yours and mine. Funny, when I look into your baby doll, I keep looking forward to tomorrow and finding yesterday. I told myself the day you said goodbye, go find someone new to drive you from your mind. But he said, not easy said like some folks say. Well, I'm not looking forward to tomorrow, you find him yesterday. You're in every cup of coffee and in every glass of wine. Each song on the jukebox sounds like yours and mine. Funny, when I look at someone new, I see your face.
I need to get those.
He'll start picking and grinning if he wants to.
How about another Jim Reeves song? Four Walls.
Out where the bright lights are glowing, you're drawn like a moth to the flame. You laugh while the wine's overflowing, while I sit and I whisper your name.
Sometimes I feel the weight of the past break in my mind. I know it's gone for good. It makes me want to cry. Is this all we get to keep as the years go strolling by? Just a memory of all the days gone by. Oh, you're always in my heart, and you're often on my mind. Your love will never die, long as I'm alive. Oh, it seems so sad to me that we never said goodbye. I guess it never hurts to hurt sometimes. You try to hold on to the moment, but time won't let you stay. For every step you take, you lose something along the way. Is this all we get to keep as the years go strolling by? Just a memory of all the days gone by. Oh, you're always in my heart, and you're often on my mind. Your love will never die, long as I'm alive. Oh, it seems so sad to me that we never said goodbye. I guess it never hurts to hurt sometimes. Oh, I guess it never hurts to hurt sometimes. Cowboy Chuck from Boulder City. Thank you.
Run out of song. How about Walking the Floor Over You? Ernest Tubb. You left me and you went away. You said you
right into walking the floor over you. Now, darling, you know I love you well. I love you than I could ever tell. I thought that you loved me, always would be mine, but you left me here alone with troubles on my mind. I'm walking the floor over you. I can't sleep a wink, that is true. I'm hoping and I'm praying my heart breaks right in two. Walking the floor over you. Yes, walking the floor over you. Quick and sweet.
Thank you so much for watching the cowboy and his crew, that whole gang.
A plan of attack, like something that maybe the military would use?
It's a plan that my daughter uses to plan for her basketball games.
Strategic plan is how I get my wife and kids in an area that they don't want to be.
It's a document that's strategically done.
A strategic plan would be the implementation of a vision.
A strategic plan is a guiding, fluid document that helps the city plan for its future. The goals and objectives have been identified through community input.
It's sweater weather. Cover your pipes and plants to prevent freeze damage this winter. A Southern Nevada Water Authority water treatment facility earns accolades for going above and beyond to ensure your water quality. And get off your grass and earn some cash with a WaterSmart Landscapes rebate. Learn all the ways to save here on Waterways. The SNWA Board authorized General Manager John Ensminger to execute 3 agreements concerning a new federal drought contingency plan. The Lower Basin Plan provides Arizona, California, and Nevada with the tools to voluntarily reduce water demands and minimize risks associated with a decline in Lake Mead water levels. The Upper Basin Plan protects critical elevations in Lake Powell and ensures compliance with the 1922 Colorado River Compact. Under the proposed Lower Basin Plan, Nevada, Arizona, and California would make a series of voluntary water contributions to keep water in Lake Mead. The amount of voluntary contribution by each state is based on Lake Mead's elevation. The plan will allow the lower basin states to recover some of their voluntary contributions as Lake Mead's elevation recovers. Even with these voluntary contributions and mandatory shortage reductions, Southern Nevada has sufficient water resources to meet our community's water needs. However, continued conservation is critical to maintaining our current and future water resources. The Water Authority reached a milestone on the construction of its low lake level pumping station. In December, workers flooded the forebay, located more than 500 feet underground. It's now linked with intake number 3. Crews will soon install 32 submersible pumps in the forebay to pump water to SNWA's 2 water treatment facilities. The high-volume pumping station, combined with intake number 3, will ensure access to Southern Nevada's primary drinking water supply, even as lake levels decline. The low lake level pumping station is scheduled for completion in 2020. Everyone needs water. That's why it's so important to the Southern Nevada Water Authority to treat drinking water to the highest standards and deliver it safely to your homes. We're able to provide the highest quality water through our state-of-the-art and award-winning water treatment plants.
Our River Mountains facility truly is one of the best in the world. It goes far beyond standards for the Safe Drinking Water Act. We're very proud to be part of this facility.
The River Mountains Water Treatment Facility recently received the highly coveted Partnership for Safe Water's Excellence in Water Treatment Award from the American Water Works Association. Less than 20 water utilities have received the award, and when you consider there are more than 50,000 community water systems in the U.S., it's quite a recognition.
The partnership was conceived to recognize facilities going above the call of duty. It recognizes things like not being complacent in how we do business, but always trying to strive for something better. It looks at efficiency, and we've done well on all those categories: efficiency, maintenance, employee training. So we've gone above the call of duty and continue to press on. So it's a recognition of those efforts.
The rigorous award process measures the extent to which utilities optimize both water quality and efficiency of their facilities, as well as efforts to go above and beyond the regulations, ensuring continuous improvement to drinking water quality. With River Mountains, an expert panel analyzed hundreds of pages of technical data and detailed narratives describing the treatment plant's operations and capabilities. Kevin, what were some of the items the experts were looking for in distributing this award?
Well, they really examined our filter process, which is the heartbeat of a treatment plant. So they looked at our daily records, and they really drilled in to say how we were operating the plant, how we're doing backwashes on the filters and taking good care of them. They looked at our maintenance practices, and were we taking good care of our facilities. They were looking at how we're training employees and making sure that they could work on that specific equipment at our plant. They also looked at our overall water quality, and were we always pressing forward, trying to make it better, just not meeting the rules, but actually had well-defined goals that allowed us to push forward and actually improve water quality coming out of the plant.
The exclusive award is an honor for SNWA, which is responsible for providing a safe supply of drinking water to more than 2.2 million residents in Southern Nevada. The SNWA's 2 water treatment facilities, River Mountains and Alfred Merritt Smith, use cutting-edge technology to ensure that the community's water is treated and tested to the utmost standards. Ensuring high-quality drinking water requires the SNWA to coordinate with state and federal agencies and maintain compliance with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Safe Drinking Water Act. We monitor water quality in real time, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. At the SNWA's Water Quality Laboratory, an average of 400,000 water analyses are completed each year. Our lab is one of the most sophisticated in the world. It uses the latest technology to ensure that your water meets or surpasses federal standards. Beyond testing, water treatment processes are state-of-the-art. The Water Authority treats water with ozone, a powerful disinfectant that kills potentially harmful microscopic organisms that may be present. A multi-stage filtration process follows that. Then as water leaves the water treatment facilities, chlorine is again added to protect it on the way to your tap. Our research and development scientists find new ways to further improve the quality of our drinking water. The SNWA has one of the nation's top municipal R&D complexes and is one of the few that combines research and water quality testing under the same roof. The R&D conducted by SNWA has contributed to increased knowledge in the fields of water science and water treatment. Through R&D, SNWA has developed treatment techniques to address emerging water quality issues such as pharmaceuticals and personal care products.
Well, having all of our groups in one spot, they can support each other. If we have a treatment problem, our research group can come in and help. There's several PhDs that can help us solve technical problems. Also with our water quality group and our testing group, they can work with our operations group in making sure that the testing is accurate, timely, and very fast. We also have our maintenance group that installs instrumentation. It can be validated with our laboratory. What's really interesting is that our group really makes excellence a habit. Anybody can rise to the occasion for a few minutes of the day or a few days of the month, but really the partnership is pushing us to have excellence just all the time, and it's a way of measuring it. So we're really excited about this award.
Winter watering restrictions are in effect through February, limiting landscape watering to 1 day a week. If you're unsure what day you're assigned to water, visit snwa.com and click on Find Your Watering Group and Provider. Running your sprinkler system outside your assigned day is water waste and may result in a water waste fee or citation.
Whether it's residential, commercial, a city or county park, you could receive a violation or fee for watering outside your restricted day. Also, you could receive a violation or fee for spray and flow runoff, such as water flowing over a sidewalk or into a gutter from your property. You can also receive a citation or fee if you have an on-site leak, such as a broken emitter, broken sprinkler head, and those would be flagged and the customer would be notified of those irrigation issues.
In 2018, SNWA member agencies conducted approximately 8,000 water waste investigations throughout the valley and issued more than 400 fines. If you see water waste, report it immediately to your water provider and ensure you're adhering to mandatory watering restrictions to avoid a water waste fee. If you need help remembering to change your irrigation clock each season, sign up for our text reminders. It's certainly not the North Pole, but Las Vegas does experience its fair share of frigid temperatures, which means your landscape is vulnerable to cold snaps and freezes. Before you hunker down for winter, help your plants and irrigation take cover to ensure a healthy, vibrant landscape come spring.
Plants actually are very vulnerable. They're very much like people in the winter. They need that extra protection to keep them healthy. And then we also want to think about our irrigation system and be sure that we cover the irrigation system and keep that healthy in the winter too, so that we protect it from freezing.
Master gardener Denise McConnell has a knack for caring for desert plants. Her green thumb experience and tips can help your plants survive the extremes of the desert, from sweltering triple digits in the summer to the occasional freezes in winter. Like people, plants prefer layers to keep warm in the wintertime, so add more mulch to the plants in your landscape. Mulch is a top dressing that covers the soil and protects plant roots from freezing. It also helps to conserve moisture so you don't have to water as often.
For those cold-sensitive plants, you're going to want to add a layer of mulch as an extra protection. You're going to want to put about 6 inches of mulch around the base of the plant, especially important on plants like this bougainvillea that's a subtropical plant. And I've had this one here about 6 years and it's still going strong.
Potted plants appreciate warmth too. Move your most cold-sensitive plants to a side of the house sun, but beware they could still freeze. A better option, if you have it, is to move your potted plants to a covered patio where they will be better protected. Cover plants in the ground with frost blankets or burlap.
Some plants are hardier than others and can take the cold. What should we know about plants' tolerance in changing desert conditions?
Their hardiness depends upon where they actually come from. So the desert-adapted plants will be the ones that will be hardy to this area. Other ones, subtropicals like bougainvillea, would have to take more protection. But the other ones can take it until it gets down into the low 30s, and then you may want to cover them. And you can use materials like burlap or a sheet and just cover them for the night and then take it off the next morning.
If you notice frost or a freeze has damaged a plant, leave it alone until warmer weather arrives. New growth may still appear. Pruning or transplanting a damaged plant during winter months can hurt or even kill it.
Now that you've prepared your plants to go a few rounds with Old Man Winter, you'll want to protect your irrigation system, the lifeline of your landscape.
So we want to protect all of our irrigation lines and be sure that we don't have those above the ground. We want to protect our hose bibs and the hoses themselves to keep them from breaking, and as well the backflow preventer. That's a quite expensive repair if you have to repair it if it should freeze. So we want to give that the adequate protection that it needs.
Walk through your landscape and inspect your irrigation lines. Bury any exposed drip lines or cover them with a few inches of mulch. This will help to insulate them against water that could freeze inside and burst the lines. Disconnect and drain garden hoses you don't regularly use in winter. Further protect the faucet with a cover or wrap it with an old cloth and duct tape. Next, cover your backflow prevention device.
Denise, why is wrapping or protecting the backflow so important?
So the backflow preventer actually can freeze. And if that freezes and breaks, it's a very expensive repair. And this backflow preventer is what keeps the irrigation water from going back into the water supply. So it's very important to give it that winter protection. And there's a number of ways that we can protect it. Probably one of the easiest is to just purchase this sleeve that goes right over the top of it. There's also like a synthetic rock that you put over the top of this. That's a good protection. And then the other thing is that you can use this foam tubing. And this one here is especially made for this. It has tape on the inside here so that when you put it around there, you pull the tape off and it can close. And this is a great insulator. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually wrap it. So I like to cut a little piece off first, just for this little area here where they come together, just to hold them together when I'm working with it. And then you just start wrapping this tape around it. And this holds that foam in place and just makes it a little more firm. And it goes pretty quickly once you get the hang of it. I'm only going to wrap right up to these valves here. And you can see these valves here. These need to be kept out of the wrapping, because if you have to turn the water off to the irrigation, this is where you would do it. There's also a bleed valve here on the bottom, and you don't want that wrapped either. So you don't put the foam wrapping over it, and you don't put the tape over it. But here I have the foam wrapping that goes right up to the big bell part here, and it's important that that is wrapped with the foam all the way up to the big bell. And that's all there is to it.
Finally, locate your water shutoff valve and learn to turn off water at the source. Doing this will save you from major damage caused by leaks or burst lines. For more winter protection tips, visit us at snwa.com.
Late winter is the ideal time to prune your plants and trees. Master Gardener Denise McConnell has tips to help you prune like a pro.
Here we are in the backyard. We've just done this pruning. So this is the time of the year to actually prune your deciduous trees. So those would be, meaning non-evergreen. The sap is not running in the tree at that time. So when we do the pruning, you know, it's right where this swelling is here. See how the bark swells out here? And you do it right up at the edge of that swelling before it narrows any further. And the reason why we make that cut there is so that the bark will keep forming there and eventually will completely close. So here's one here that's about 3 years old. And you can see that that cut, which was that big, has formed a lot of bark around it. And that cut will eventually completely close, and you won't even know that that cut was there. We're going to prune this climbing rose. It'll eventually, you know, get up on the trellis. And so this is the time of the year to do it, no later than Valentine's Day. So what you want to do is you want to look for a place where it's actually going to create a bud that's going to come out and grow up this direction. So I have a place here, it's called a bud scar, and that's where I'm going to prune it. I've sterilized my pruning tool with half bleach and half water, and you want to sterilize it whenever you're cutting roses, moving from one rose bush to the other so that you don't carry disease with you in case something may be infected. You're going to cut about 1/4 of an inch above that bud scar at a 45-degree angle. So I'm just going to take that off just like that, and then I'm going to come back here and take some of these leaves off, and there's little bud scars here where the plant's going to grow in that direction. I don't want it growing out this direction because I've got a pathway here. So now what I do is I take some carpenter's glue, and what I'm going to be doing is actually putting that on the edge where my pruning cut is. And what that's going to do is seal that pruning cut off so that I don't have insects getting down inside of it. So the roses is the only thing that we do this with. So this is lantana, and lantana is very popular in our landscape and does great here. And you can leave it there and have it look like that, but if you want to clean it up and make it be nice, it's okay to do that too. You're not going to hurt the plant at all. So I simply just take a big section of it and go down. This is the ground cover lantana, and I just cut this about 1 inch above the ground. And it goes pretty quickly because you just, you gather up these big sections. And sometimes people think their lantana is dead and then they'll pull them out, but you don't want to do that. Like with the bougainvillea, you just wait till spring and see where the new growth is coming out and cut back to that. So we made really short work of that, and look at how nice that looks now.
It may be sweater weather, but it's not too early to plan for a water-smart landscape. In fact, now's the perfect time to enroll in the SNWA's WaterSmart Landscapes Rebate Program. By spring, you'll have a yard that not only conserves water in a big way, but looks uniquely your own.
We come out and we literally look at our yard and we enjoy it tremendously.
Yeah, it's actually, we can't believe it's our yard.
Yep. From the kitchen window, when I look outside, it's beautiful. From every angle, it looks clean, it looks organized.
And when you look at
awesome.
what grass we have left, this is only a third. Like, we took out 2/3 of our grass.
Adrian Ridgely and Mike Graves were finally ready to ditch their grass when the SNWA increased its WaterSmart Landscapes rebate from $2 a square foot to $3 a square foot. Their backyard lawn was using too much water and didn't represent the couple's artistic lifestyle.
Adrian and Mike, tell me a little bit about what made you decide to convert a portion of your yard to desert landscaping.
So I guess the first reason was that a lot of our grass actually didn't look good. There were patches of it that were just like crabgrass, and it never thrived. And so that was one of the main reasons. The other one would be definitely to cut down on the water.
Sure. And when you started the process, did you have some goals in mind of what you wanted to achieve with the conversion?
I wanted to keep as green as possible, obviously. And we eliminated one tree. Some of them kind of popped on its own, volunteers, what we call them. So I wanted to have more modern look, clean, less maintenance for sure, and obviously water preservation.
The couple designed the concept for their backyard conversion and hired a landscaper to remove more than 1,500 square feet of grass. They planted a variety of colorful, desert-hardy plants like lantana, Texas Ranger, privet, and juniper. Low water use drip emitters replaced water-intensive sprinkler heads, and decorative rock mulch surrounds their small patch of grass kept for their dog, Princess. Adrian and Mike added the final touches, landscape lighting, and pieces of art to complete their home's outdoor retreat. The SNWA's WaterSmart Landscapes rebate program walked them through the entire process.
After the application process, they came out and measured, and that was pretty simple. The guy was in here maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and he made a little map. Then we just did our thing. And then at the end, you call them again, they came out and remeasured, and then you get a nice letter a couple weeks later, tells you what you qualify for, and you sign some paperwork and you get the check. Right. Like I was shocked at how fast and easy the process was. Like, it was painless.
To incentivize residents and businesses to reduce grass in the valley, the SNWA increased the WaterSmart Landscapes rebate. Participants can now earn up to $3 for every square foot of turf they convert to WaterSmart Landscaping, up to 10,000 square feet per project, and $1.50 for every square foot over that. The maximum incentive for any property in a fiscal year is $500,000.
Johan, tell us, how has the increased rebate helped incentivize Southern Nevadans to step up and participate in the rebate program?
Since the rebate increased back in May from $2 a square foot to $3 a square foot, we've seen a tremendous increase in the number of new applications coming into the program, and it's been very encouraging for us. We know that we still have a lot of work left to do. There's still a lot of turf out left in the community.
As the record drought continues to impact Lake Mead water levels, our community is asked to elevate its conservation efforts.
To boost participation and remind Valley residents and businesses about conservation efforts, the SNWA is increasing its community outreach. Our conservation team recently mailed 20,000 letters to properties with large patches of grass to encourage them to participate in the landscape rebate. The team also is reaching out to people who had previously signed up for the landscape rebate but never completed their projects, and homeowners associations where large sections of non-functional grass area exists.
The SNWA has been doing a lot of outreach with single-family residential, with homeowners associations, with property managers, and with businesses. We know that there is about 5,000 acres of non-functional turf left throughout the valley, and this is turf areas around shopping centers, gas stations. This is turf along roadways and medians. We know that that turf is perfect for the Water Smart Landscapes program. So we try to emphasize that if the only time that someone walks on the turf area is to mow it, that's perfect to be converted to desert landscape.
Replacing water-guzzling grass with a Water Smart landscape could cut your home water use by up to 75%. The SNWA estimates a water-efficient landscape can save homeowners approximately 55 gallons of water per square foot per year. Those savings add up. For an average 1,000 square foot conversion, that's 55,000 gallons of water saved yearly. For Adrian and Mike, the savings is more than 82,000 gallons. Since the inception of the Water Smart Landscapes rebate program, Southern Nevadans have replaced more than 187 million square feet of turf, enough to wrap an 18-inch roll of sod around 95% of the Earth's circumference. The water savings is beyond 119 billion gallons.
Don't wait long to convert your grass to a Water Smart landscape. Apply online at snwa.com and you'll do your part to help Southern Nevada conserve water where it matters most, outdoors.
Before you remove a single blade of grass, you must apply for the Water Smart Landscapes rebate. Enroll online or call the Conservation Helpline for a printed application. Once the completed application is received, the SNWA will schedule a site review visit to evaluate your lawn and conversion areas and answer any questions you may have. You must participate in the pre-conversion site visit before removing your lawn. Then, dig in. You have 1 year to complete your conversion. Finally, cash in and get your rebate check. For more program details, visit us at snwa.com.
This isn't a field, this is useless. Now we can really play.
The Las Vegas Wash is a true success story. Once a natural resource for Native Americans and early settlers, it suffered from erosion and population growth in the late 20th century. In the last 20 years, a community effort to stabilize the wash has paid off.
Community involvement has been a main part of the Las Vegas Wash, the improvements that we've been doing along the Las Vegas Wash.
Today, the Las Vegas Wash is a thriving waterway thanks to partnerships, volunteers, and dedicated work to restore this important resource. Just 20 years ago, the wash was in despair. Erosion, garbage, and poor water quality crippled the 12-mile channel that serves as the final link in our water supply. The Las Vegas Wash is the primary drainage channel for the entire Las Vegas Valley. Each day, the wash captures approximately 200 million gallons of highly treated effluent, urban runoff, and shallow groundwater, as well as runoff from occasional storms. It acts as a natural filter as it channels the water to Lake Mead, Southern Nevada's primary source of drinking water. Wetlands help filter sediment and other impurities from its flows. In the late 20th century, flows within the channel increased significantly, along with Southern Nevada's population, causing erosion that drained wetlands and threatened wildlife habitat, water quality, and wastewater infrastructure.
One major issue was an algal bloom in Las Vegas Bay in Lake Mead, which was caused by high nutrient levels which were going through the Las Vegas Wash, as well as sediment from the Las Vegas Wash was entering Lake Mead, really causing water quality problems in the lake. And then third, some of our water supply pipelines were being exposed due to the erosion in the Las Vegas Wash.
In 1998, community stakeholders, including the SNWA, partnered to address water quality issues in the Wash and find a way to stabilize this important water resource. The Las Vegas Wash Coordination Committee was formed. The committee mapped out a plan to address tough issues plaguing the Wash. Over the past 20 years, the group has worked tirelessly to restore this vital ecological resource. Among its many accomplishments, the Las Vegas Wash Coordination Committee has reestablished the wetlands, increased wildlife habitats, revegetated areas along the wash to stabilize soils, and improved water quality by constructing weirs, dam-like structures that slow the flow of water and control erosion along the bed of the wash.
In 2018, we completed the final weir along the Las Vegas Wash, so now there are 21 weirs which slow down the water, reduce erosion, and help improve water quality. With that, we've revegetated over 500 acres along the Las Vegas Wash, which definitely improve the ecosystem, providing a home for different types of wildlife. And those revegetated acres also help improve the water quality.
Public outreach and community involvement are key components of the Las Vegas Wash's success. The Las Vegas Wash Coordination Committee organizes green-up planting events twice a year. Volunteers arm themselves with shovels, dig in, and help plant hundreds of native plants along the wash.
This is our 33rd green up along the Las Vegas Wash, and having that community involvement has been critical to the success of this program. It allows ownership from the community and the stewardship activities that they can do by planting plants and seeing those plants grow and coming back year after year. We know that it is creating a bond between this project and the community members.
There are more ways to save, so join us next time here on Waterways. If you'd like to share your conservation efforts at home, contact us at Waterways, 1001 South Valley View Boulevard, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89153. Or send us an email through our website at snwa.com. We may feature your story. For more how-to videos and tips to conserve and care for our water, connect with us on social media. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time, right here on Waterways.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to City Council. It's good to see all of you. We will start with our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, and our invocation will be given by Pastor Adam Stetson from Christian Lutheran Church. Thank you.
Let us pray. Lord, you rule the nations of the world, giving government to oppose injustice and oppression. Give wisdom and truth to all those you've appointed, that they may serve faithfully to promote all that is good and right and prevent and punish evil. We pray you to place your blessing on all those who serve your people in government, the police, firefighters, emergency medical personnel, and the armed forces. Give them good and honest hearts for their service, and lead them by your word to know and do what is good and right for all people and in accordance with your will. We pray for this community, for those elected and appointed to positions of leadership, for our judge, for the welfare of our community, and the welfare of us all. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. In the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. All right. We do have one or more swearings in tonight? One swearing in tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could call up Steve Rudd, the newest member of our Planning Commission. If you could raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Steve Rudd,
Do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and the Constitution and government of the state of Nevada and government against all enemies, whether domestic or foreign, and that I will bear true faith, allegiance, and loyalty to the same, any ordinance, resolution, or law of any state notwithstanding, and that I will perform well and faithfully all the duties of Planning Commissioner of Boulder City, Nevada, on which I am about to enter. So help me God under the pains and penalties of perjury. And congratulations and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Steve. Next council meeting, you have to repeat that from memory without making any mistakes. All right. Next, we have our public comment, our initial public comment, which is a public comment period devoted to agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item? Judy.
Judy DeShane. Item 7 was the one for the, oh shoot, I forgot my notes. Well, okay, so let's see what I can remember. That's on the ballot for the $40 million. When I was reading through it, the background on that, it says for the aquatic center, and then it also says recreational projects and equipment. Are they buying bats and balls? I mean, because they really haven't decided what we're having for an aquatic center or for a new swimming pool, let's face it. So, I mean, I'm just somewhat concerned that up to $40 million and it could be used for other than the swimming pool. And then item 9, which is the ad hoc utility, that I felt was very poorly worded and put together. This ad hoc committee was something created by the citizens, strictly voluntary, in order to help the council. And the way that these proposals are, it totally goes against any way we've set up committees before. And I am very against both options on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Others on an agenda item? Okay, we will close initial public comment period and move to our approval of the regular agenda. Madam City Clerk.
No changes.
Mr. City Manager.
No changes.
And we have Mr. Gary Booker filling in tonight as our city attorney. Attorney. Thank you for being here. Council.
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Next is approval of the consent agenda. Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Mayor, we're asking to remove item number 2, please.
Okay, thank you. Mr. City Manager.
No further changes.
Mr. City Attorney. And we'll come back to council.
Move to approve with changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we'd like to recognize our 4th graders with us tonight. There are a few of you. Could you please stand so we can see you on the camera? You can see yourself if you look up there. And thank you for coming. They're working on their Nevada citizens, and they are great citizens. Thank you. Thank you. Feel free to participate tonight, too. All right. Our first regular agenda item is consideration of Bill number 1844, related to Schuyler Townsite LLC. And we have Mr. Armentrout to introduce that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Brock Armentrout, your contracts real estate manager. This is Bill 6893. Excuse me.
1844.
1844. You approved 6893 in the consent calendar. I was so excited about getting a grant that it was just stuck in my mind. Bill 1844 is to extend the option period for the Schuyler solar option leasehold. This site's located just west of the Boulder City Municipal Airport, and it's been known on some maps as the Town Site Southwest site. On the solar map that's on the wall is that yellow area at the very top of the map. The site was originally leased to Korean Western Power Company. Because of issues that they had back home, they sold their leasehold or option interest to Schuyler, which then entered into an extended option agreement with the city, which does expire this February, if not extended today. They have been working with city staff for the past 6 months to extend the option an additional 3 years. And during that negotiation, we also realized that there are some requirements in the original option agreement that at the time we thought would benefit the city, and as we analyzed them, it turned out it would have hurt the city. One of which was the original option agreement required them to give us 1.5 megawatts of solar energy. On its face, it sounds like this is a good deal, free power. But it turns out, under the way we're regulated by federal government and other entities, solar energy is not considered a firm resource, and so you have to have in spinning reserve someplace the same amount of power able to turn on at a moment's notice in case that intermittent resource goes dormant. In our case, when a cloud comes over or this time of night, it's not producing solar. So finding out that we were paying for those same electrons, we sought an alternate means to satisfy this requirement with Schuyler. We found out that in addition to being in the energy generation business, they're also in the energy brokering business. And we worked out a deal where we would get discounted power up to 5 megawatts at a discounted rate for the 30-year life of the contract once the option's leased. In comparison, our current power contracts outside the Hoover and Schedule B hydro contracts, we pay up to $46 to $47 a megawatt hour. This 5 megawatt requirement in the lease, once it's exercised, would provide us power at $39.95 a megawatt hour, roughly savings of $5 per megawatt hour. And this is for the full 30 years, and it's shapeable power. The solar, it was take it. It's 365 days a year, and we would have had to have spinning reserve for that amount. Whether we 5 megawatts, we can shape when we take that power. There are 4 months of the year, for example, where we survive solely on the hydroelectric power, and we don't need to buy power on the market. Under this agreement, we wouldn't have to be paying for those 5 megawatts. We'd only be paying for them when we actually needed them. Once the lease is or option is exercised, they will be paying $1,500 an acre for a 30-year term with 2 10-year options. For reference, that $1,500 an acre for the first year would be just over $1.5 million a year, and then it would escalate at 0.75% a year throughout the life of the agreement, including the option periods. During the option period, it does increase by 3% each year that they don't exercise the option, and it does expire February 1st of the year 2022. We anticipate, and they anticipate, that they'll exercise well before then, as they are working towards establishing a power purchase agreement with an off-taker. But at staff suggestion, we want to play it safe, and that's why we did a 3-year agreement. Staff is recommending that we approve this bill, and representatives from Schuyler, their attorney Linda Bullen, and their COO Gerald Balbo are here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments, Council? Mr. Harre?
Well, at first, I'd like to commend you in the negotiating process, and also this report containing the information of why it doesn't make sense, economic sense, for Boulder City to have its own solar field. I've been trying to explain that for many months now, and now we have it in black and white. So I'm going to warn you, I'm going to steal that part of that report. What was also particularly interesting in reading the document is that in addition to providing solar or having a solar plant, the plan is also to have some storage facilities. And this is pretty much state-of-the-art stuff. I'm glad that we're negotiating at the point that we're dealing with the state-of-the-art rather than what was effective 20 years ago. So I just have good things to say about this agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Schuman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I too have good things to say with this agreement. I think you made some nice changes between the last option and this one. The one thing you didn't mention was the option exercise payment of $4.1 million upon construction. I think that's a particularly good point to mention here. That's $4.1 million that's given to the city as soon as they exercise this option, begin construction out there. So a lot of favorable terms in this deal, and like Councilman Harhe said, I've been answering that question a lot too, is why don't we just get free solar? And you know, it's a tough one to answer. It's now a little bit easier for us to answer. It's still a little tricky answering it, but we'll do our best. So we appreciate you converting that. And then my question is, of the 1,032 acres, if they exercise this option, do they have to use all 1,032? Can they use less?
They can use up to. Most of our agreements are that way, with our option agreements, where they can exercise in whole or in phases, or not at all.
And I guess I'm just curious: is that the intention? Is that where they're going with that? Does it seem like that?
It's my understanding they'd like to maximize the footprint so that they can make the most utility out of the interconnect that they have at the Meade substation.
All right,
if we had more land, I'm sure they'd be happy to take it.
Mr. McManus.
A couple of things that came up today when we were discussing this at the briefing was the escalator clause is at 0.75% per year over the 30 years. That's a little bit lower than some of the most recent contracts, but the cost of power that's been negotiated is flat over that period of time. So for a 30-year period of time, we get that power at this $39.50 a megawatt. Is that correct?
$39.95, but yes, that's close.
Okay. So again, as Mr. Schuman had said, there are some favorable terms in here for us. One of the questions that Mr. Schuman had too was if they were to develop only 300 acres of this, what would that do as far as the terms of this go? Does the option expire on the remaining amount? Do they pay on the remaining amount?
They would continue paying a prorated amount on the remaining amount for the option through February 1st of 2022, and any land not exercised at that point, it becomes unoptioned.
Okay, so we would then have the option either to work with them or another company?
Or do nothing, correct.
Okay. Something that I think needs to be pointed out about this particular project is this is going to be the first project that's away from the dry lake bed. It's going to be very visible as we come and go from Las Vegas. This will now stretch from just west of the airport all the way across the Searchlight Highway. Is that correct?
That's
It'll
correct.
follow along the I-11 bypass?
Correct.
So 1,032 acres, it's going to be obvious, I'm guessing.
It won't be missed.
Yeah. And again, I think it's important for the residents to understand that as these contracts move forward, the open space out there goes away. These projects are using up very large tracts of land.
That's correct.
Okay. Another concern I had was this placement of a substation. We spoke about that again at the briefing. Plans for future service to the western half of the city, when the actual intent is to be able to provide power out to the I-11-95 interchange. That was the initial construction, to move that substation out to the northernmost part of the project.
The current option agreement does require that their on-site substation, where they take power to the Meade substation, be at the northernmost point of the development, through the negotiations is relocated to the southeast corner of the project, with the understanding that at such times that the city needs power delivered to the interchange, that within their leasehold they would extend a appropriate transmission line to that point, where we would then take delivery at the north end of their leasehold.
Okay, and the power that we would buy at the discounted rate has nothing to do with that substation? That power comes out of the Meade substation?
Comes straight out of Meade through our own tap.
Okay, so again, what I'm getting at is this substation is really not for any current use for Boulder City. It's designed to provide power further out from our existing city footprint?
No, all solar projects have an on-site substation, and that's the purpose of the substation, for them to collect all the power, dump it into the substation, then it's wheeled over to the Meade substation from there.
Okay, but again, the initial plans or the original plans on this were to provide power further out from our existing footprint?
We would have had the ability to place our own transformer and then take delivery at that point.
And again, the reason I'm asking this is as these projects are being built, or this particular project, the idea is we're going to extend. The plan was to develop that interchange out there, and this would have been the means to get power to it.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Levitt.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick comment that I think everybody's covered all the points that we at least discussed in our briefing, but I just want to point out that Linda Bolin, who represents this company, has always made herself available to us, so my assumption is that most of the council members, if not all of us, have had a chance to meet with her and discuss this with her as well. So in addition to our briefing, we had a briefing with her.
Thank you. Mr. Harvey.
I just have a comment on the discussion regarding the power plant, because I've asked those specific questions. And really, from a technical standpoint, this is the reason why it's been relocated, to provide a better and more economical access to the Meade substation.
That's correct.
And the Meade substation has one remaining connection to the grid. And from what I understand, the plan is they've already arranged to have that connection. And so by relocating the substation, it makes that technically more feasible and more economical. I think there always is concern regarding projects that rise from the dead, and Mr. McManus has basically called out the worry and suspicion that somehow this is going to revive the Hoover Dam Gateway Center project, which I believe has been dead. I don't know. I don't believe it's a Lazarus type program, so I'm completely willing to drive a stake through the heart of that program, because we're not ready for that kind of thing. But we are ready to get cheap electricity, and we are ready to have some more income.
Thank you. And I appreciate Skylar's accessibility too, as well, Linda Bolin. Always very professional in the way they reach out to us, and thank them for that. So with that, I would go ahead and move for approval on this.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move for approval on this agenda item.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. Next is item number 6, consideration of bill number 1846, land sale agreement, BC Holdings LLC. Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Brock Armanchot, your contracts real estate manager. This is Bill 1846 to approve a land sale to BC Holdings LLC. They own a residential lot at the northeast corner of Avenue I and Nevada Way on the Hemingway Valley side of town. This is for 6,885.47 square feet. This is to correct a deficiency that was created many, many moons ago when the original subdivision was developed. It was felt that a road was going to go in a different location. It never went there. But in the interim, their driveway was built to access the property, and to access the right-of-way, it had to go across city property. So this corrects this deficiency where they will now be immediately adjacent to right-of-way, and their driveway will no longer cross a no man's land. Acreage has been enlarged somewhat, a little larger than what's required for the driveway, as a prior owner had established some really nice landscaping near the driveway, and we want to include that nice landscaping in with what they were purchasing. Mr. Roger Williamson is the landowner of BC Holdings. Should you have any questions, he's here to answer them. Otherwise, I'm sure he'll be very happy to hear a motion to approve. Staff's recommending approval.
Okay. Any questions, council? No, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item number 7, Resolution 6894 regarding issuance of general obligation bonds and notifying the Debt Management Commission. I have Diane Pelletier, our Finance Director.
Thank you. Resolution 6894 is the next step following the January 8th Council approval of a ballot question to fund an aquatic center for $40 million. And that's at the high level. But what this resolution does is allows us to go before the Clark County Debt Management Commission to inform them of this decision. And they will be meeting on February 7th, I believe, to do that. So this allows us to petition them to go before them to talk about our upcoming bond issue on the ballot. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions? Mr. Schuman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just curious, Dan, why does it take council action to go before the bond committee?
We have to go before them to talk about the affected governmental entities, of which there aren't any, but that is part of the Nevada process. I'm kind of new to that process too, but that is what Bond Council has instructed us we need to do. They drafted the language of the resolution petitioning to go before them.
Thank you.
I believe that's in NRS 350.013. That's was referred to in your information, and that's what requires us to go to the authority that would guarantee that?
Yes.
I have a couple of other questions about this. Again, it's been discussed. The $40 million is well above what the consultants had come in with. Costs were added to that, as being said to be required. We had very little time as a council to look at alternatives on this. I think that's very unfortunate. We've also are going to be asking the public for $5 million out of the Capital Improvement Fund to go towards this project, which could potentially reduce that $40 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Or any other items we can discover between now and the time the voters would approve it. We'll be looking for other options, alternatives, means of financings. The $40 million is on the top end, but we are pretty confident that we wouldn't have to sell that many bonds.
And I just want to clarify for you, when you say look for other things, you mean look for other financing options, not other things to spend
Well, there could
money.
be other revenues that we could allocate towards payment of debt.
Right. I'm just getting at, you're not referring to any other parts of the project, just the financing part of it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. One thing that I've observed, I serve on the Debt Management Commission, and one thing I've observed on there, which we may want to be prepared for, are questions as to why we're asking for this amount if we're not actually planning on spending that amount. It is a concern of that. All of these amounts go under Clark County's bonding authority, and they don't like seeing that authority get pigeonholed for projects that the money won't be required for. So I think that's something that we would need to be prepared for. I too noted the question that was brought up in public comment This ordinance that is being looked at tonight does not specify the project that this is to be spent on, other than that it will be a recreational project. So I'm not terribly comfortable with that. I think when we ask the residents for money, we should be telling them exactly what it is we intend to spend that money on. And that's not clear in the wording that we have. And last point, the resolution misstates, I believe, the intent of that NRS 350.013. It is the governing body of the municipality that is supposed to submit the information. And again, the wording in that specifies the mayor, whereas the statute specifies the governing body as a whole. So again, I think we do need to be careful when we quote statute that we comply with what is in that statute. I know that probably wasn't something you wrote, but I just want to clarify we need to make sure we're clear on what we're quoting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ari.
Now, I would like to reiterate my takeaway from what's been happening and try to boil it down to a more easily understandable situation. What we're asking the citizens to do is to give us a line of credit, essentially. And let's say you have a homeowner or a couple that wants to buy a new home. One of the first things they do, they go out and find out, well, how much will the bank lend me? And let's say the bank says $400,000 is your limit for the house. That's what we agreed. That's all in. That's all we're going to do. And the bank may make some other requirements, and one of the things is collateral, obviously. And so they're going to look to that couple and say, well, how are you going to pay this back? And in the normal course of business, personal loan or whatever, your income is good, as well as the deed on the house or the land. But in business, it's much different. In business, the bond people, they said, well, your revenue stream for us is not enough collateral. What we need to do is have hard numbers in case you need all of this money that you're asking for. And that the collateral of a project in process is zipped because something happens. So again, in order to keep our bond rating high, we have to perform and we have to show up that, yes, we're committed to this project. And that in the worst case, I see it as the worst case, we have to go to the citizens for the money. I would much prefer, I agree with Councilman McManus, that the $40 million is off-putting. Again, I expressed my concerns before about some of the things in that pool design and wanted to get the costs. And I see at least one thing, $250,000 could be sliced off immediately, and that's the tennis courts. And the reason being is tennis courts are not a high technology item. They don't need to be built at the same time the pool does. They can be added on, after the pool is built, and that $200,000 doesn't need to become $400,000 if it's borrowed or paid back over a long term. And so there's a lot of manipulation, so to speak. The fact is already we're going to step up with the city saying $5 million. But I would see that our one of my goals would be to replicate some of the financing that took place for our present pool. And if we look back, there's not a lot of taxpayer money in building that pool. There's been a lot of taxpayer money keeping it running, and a lot more required. But we got the bulk of the money from the Max G. Fleischman Foundation. And we then got additional grants from the LVCA. And we got additional money from Levi Strauss. And as it turned out, we didn't really need to borrow any money. We built it with those foundations and gifts and philanthropy and so forth. But we're saying in order to get this thing started and get it rolling, we got to establish the line of credit. Not maybe we're going to borrow it, the city would step up for the $5 million as a kind of a interest. Yeah, we're committed if the voters improve. But I think what it is for the pool folks is not to concentrate equally on the aspect of out of the box thinking to get to the point that we don't have to go and increase taxes in the future. Now that may be a pipe dream, but there's a lot of pressure. People want to have a new pool. They said it in all of the surveys. The problem is the next slide shows they don't want to pay for it. So we understand. I understand that. So it's kind of a ironic situation. So I think it's incumbent upon us in the city is to understand that and not sit back and say, oh, well, we got a $40 million line, we'll use it all up. I'd like to have the $40 million okay and not use a penny of it. I think what happens is when you pass this, if the citizens agree to pass this, it shows philanthropic agencies and other people that we're intent on building this pool. We're committed to do it. And how about stepping up and giving us $20 million? Now that might be a pipe dream. We might get 20 people giving $1 million or 20 companies that, for them the money falls out of the sky, if you know what I mean. So that's my thinking, and I think you could look at it two ways. You could look at it case black, oh my God, my tax rates are going up. They're not going up unless we do our job, and don't do our job rather, in terms of raising the money. But I think there's a big misconception on this $40 million number. And because usually, in my experience in business, is the first number heard is always the number that sticks in everybody's mind. The reality is that this is not going to be an actual $40 million pool. That's my offering tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. McManus.
I would just say it makes people real uncomfortable when you give government a checkbook and tell them to write their own check. So, again, I agree we need a new pool. That's unquestioned. We need a new pool. Let's just hope they're going to give us that checkbook.
Mr. Schuman.
So this is an interesting position we're in now because we already have the ballot question in place, and now we're going to the bond council. So
it's the debt commission.
Oh, I'm sorry, the debt commission. I don't know if that could have gone the other way. I mean, what if the debt commission said no? Then why do we have a ballot question? Just throwing that out there. Either way, this is the way we're going. I find myself in a precarious situation too because I wasn't in favor of the way the ballot question was written. I wasn't in favor of the $40 million number. I too thought there was alternatives out there and would have liked to see that explored a different way. And now that we have the ballot question on there, it's hard for me not to support this next step as we go down the line. With that said, there's language in this resolution that goes right against what I felt at the last meeting, which is these bonds are expected to require a property tax levy for 30 years. The bonds are estimated to result in an increase in the property taxes that the owner of a new $100,000 home will pay, average $126 a year. So now I'm being asked again to vote on something that will raise taxes on every single citizen in Boulder City for 30 years, and I'm still not comfortable with it. So, I'm not sure how this process is going to play out. I will say that a pool is an absolute priority in this town, and we need to find a solution to it. If this were to not pass at the next election, we're back to square one, trying to figure out how we're going to pay for this pool. I'd rather be there now, figuring out how we're going to pay for this pool. So, with all of that information there, it is an interesting situation where we're at right now. We'll just kind of have to see how this plays out. Thanks.
All right, so this is kind of a ministerial step in the process if we want to proceed. And if so, I'd entertain a motion to do so.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move for approval of this agenda item, resolution number 68. Am I on the right one? Yeah, 6894.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, and that's one dissent, Mr. Schuman. That motion carries. All right, item number 8 is our 2019 land management plan. Mr. Michael Mays.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Michael Mays, your Community Development Director. As previously noted by the Council and the Mayor, there continues to be public confusion over this agenda item. And I believe one of the reasons for this confusion is the title, Land Management Plan. Plan implies that a thorough evaluation has occurred to determine the appropriate uses for a piece of land that have been evaluated and adopted. That is not the intent. Instead, this is the beginning of a transparent process to consider if the city is interested in the potential lease or sale of any city-owned property. As I note later in my presentation, there are additional steps and opportunities for public input depending on the proposal. This is only the preliminary first step. Therefore, for the sake of clarity, for the rest of my presentation, I'm going to refer to LMP not as land management plan, but the land management process. And we'll see how many times plan slips in there. Somebody will be counting, I'm sure. That one didn't count. There we go. So, the purpose of the MLP, it was adopted by ordinance in 2001 to formalize the process in which the city considers the potential lease or sale of public land. One of the reasons this was adopted by the community was previously the city would enter into discussions with potential purchasers or people considering leasing a property, and the public wouldn't be aware of the process until later on during negotiations or when it was first considered by the city council. And so this formalized a very transparent process to allow the community to have initial public input. What the LMP does not do, it is not the city's master plan. It does not amend the city's master plan. It does not rezone property. It does not approve development proposals or approve the sale or lease of land. All those actions require additional steps and consideration by the city council, and in many cases, if rezoning is warranted or these potential uses. On the city's website, we have an overview summary of the MLP process. We've broken it down to provide information on how the annual process is conducted and the steps. In addition to the summary, we also have on the website a list of the existing parcels identified in the process, as well as corresponding maps that I'll get into a little bit later. The annual process for the MLP begins each year in September when notice is put in local newspaper regarding the city asking for any interest in city land for consideration to be added to the MLP. Then each October, we present to the City Council any petitions for consideration of inclusion of land as part of the MLP. In November, the Council, if is interested in forwarding those inquiries will advance them to the Planning Commission to provide feedback back to the City Council. And then every January, February, before February 15th, the proposals come back to the City Council, and City Council adopts the annual MLP. This year, for the 2019 MLP, there was only one proposal. That was the Silver Peak LLC request to consider the addition of 667 acres to the MLP. And as you know, Silver Peak has withdrawn their request for consideration. So what that leaves for your consideration tonight is the existing LMP, the 2018 LMP, which has 23 properties on the list. Now, also in your packet, you have a letter and matrix from Councilman McManus that shows several additional parcels as part of that letter. The discrepancy there is that several parcels have been removed by the council in previous years and or have been sold or leased. And so that's why the current LMP has 23 parcels. Corresponding maps are included in your packet, and as you can see on the screen above, are separated into two areas. The northern part of the community, which is referred to as the urban area, has the majority of the parcels that is on the LMP. And then there are additional parcels at the southern end, which we refer to as the El Dorado Valley area. So your objectives are for this evening to consider the LMP, which staff is recommending adoption of the 2018 plan for 2019, to hold a public hearing, and to make recommendations for its adoption or any modification of the LMP.
All right, thank you very much. So we have no current parcels proposed to go on the plan, but several that are proposed to come off. And do we want to attack the easy ones first, or Mr. McManus, do you want to speak to some of these that you...
Well, again, my apologies for using an old map. I could have saved myself quite a bit of time of not having to go over all of those. But again, I do think that there are some that are on here. If you add these up, we're approaching 4,000 acres of land on our land management plan, certainly well over 3,000 acres if we added up all the acreage.
I don't have the total number, but I will assume that that is accurate, yes.
Yeah, I mean, just picking a couple out here, the Dutchman's Pass area, 1115, area beyond the Rifle Club, 1,100 acres, Energy Zone at Copper Mountain, 1,200 acres, the bypass and US 95 interchange, 586 acres. It adds up pretty quickly when you start throwing hundreds of acres at a time on there. So there's a massive amount of land that's on this plan, and the only reason something should be on the plan is we have some purpose or some idea that we want to develop that. So I think that that's a problem with the LMP if you choose not to use the word plan, which is actually in there. And again, I appreciate your explanation, but in my experience, that's not how a lot of these parcels were placed on this. And I also want to point out, I understand that this doesn't modify or amend our master plan, but the master plan is what calls for this process. Is that correct?
What the master plan says specifically is at the time of development, sorry, clarification. What you're referring to is the code as it relates to the land management plan. Yes, I used the word. You
have to use it once in a while because it's actually what it's called.
Absolutely. In there it says at the time of development, the property has to be consistent with the master plan.
So again, and what I'm getting at then is when these projects are proposed, the discussion should be, is this in line with our master plan? Is that a fair assessment of the process?
Really, this is the first step in the process. And that's why you'll see that the proposed uses that are listed are the applicant's initial inquiry with the city. And as I noted before, it requires many more steps for consideration by the city and the city council and the planning commission if those uses are warranted per the master plan or eventually with the zoning.
Well, and again, I guess that's what I'm getting at. If you wanted to put it into a negative way, if something were proposed that did not comply with the goals of the master plan, it probably should not be considered to be placed on the land management plan, unless there's some compelling reason for that.
I think the compelling reason was in the interest of transparency. Because if somebody wanted to consider proposing rezoning a property or amending the master plan for a proposed use, the initial step is to see, is the city even interested in entertaining a lease or sale option?
And I guess that's my point. This seems to have become, anybody approaches Boulder City and says, you know what, I need a bunch of land, go ahead and consider this. And the process should have been, does this fit in with our master plan? If it did not, then the applicant should have been told, you know what, at this time, this does not fit in with our master plan, we will not include it. But so many of these parcels were included where it was said, well, we couldn't even discuss it. But there actually is a discussion of a parcel before it gets placed on the land management plan, and that is, does it comply, is it comport well with our master plan? Again, is that a fair assessment of the process?
Well, again, with what the ordinance states is that at the time of development, it would need to be in compliance with the master plan. This is a preliminary step.
Okay. I have a feeling we're parsing a lot of very thin words here that, again, my point is there's an awful lot of land on here that simply does not comply with the goals of our master plan, and yet they get put on here, they get retained on here. Our last council meeting, there was a lease that was approved, and part of the justification was, well, it's on the land management plan. Well, something might be on the land management plan because it was misconstrued as far as how it should be on there, and then that gets used as a justification to continue moving that proposal further along. I think we keep tripping over what the purpose of this is supposed to be, and that is when an applicant comes and says, I would like to have this land considered, instead of saying, okay, well, we'll put it on the plan and then we'll talk about it. We're supposed to talk about it before it even goes on the plan. There is a process. That is why it gets referred to the Planning Commission and then comes back to City Council, is there is consideration of what should be done with that application, and not just, did they fill out the form correctly? Again, is that a fair assessment or an unfair assessment?
I think maybe we are parsing because this is a conceptual first step. And so with respect to any subsequent consideration by the city, you wouldn't go through the entitlement process for rezoning and a master plan amendment if the city has no interest in even selling or leasing the land to the applicant. So it stops the process at the very beginning.
And again, I guess that's my point. We have multiple parcels on here that never had a chance of going anywhere, and yet they still end up on this plan. So I'll move on from that. and just suggest a couple that I believe we can pull off of here. Starting with number 10, light industrial or crematory. Again, this was placed on the map in 2004. No activity since that time, as far as I'm aware.
No activity within the last year that I'm aware of. I don't know about prior to that.
Okay, so 15 years, no activity. Doesn't appear that anyone's interested. If someone had been interested in building a crematory there, it would seem that they would want to have moved ahead with that project over 15 years. I'm not asking you to make that judgment. I'm pointing that out. And if it's not on there, then take the land off the plan. If somebody else is interested in a purpose for that, they can come and submit another application. But to leave things on the plan, say, well, somebody might be interested, then they can go through the process. That's why we have a process. And I believe it's been pointed out before, too, that this plan can be amended during the year, right? This is not a one-shot only for people to make application.
That is correct. We have the annual call for applications, but anybody can come through later on in the year and ask to add an item to the LMP.
Okay. So that would be one that I suggest would come off of here this year is number 10. Number 16, the water filtration plant, single family or community. Again, placed on there 15 years ago. This is a park. It's not eligible, in my view, as a single family or community property. It's a park. People in town have donated tens of thousands of dollars. A park has been developed there. It's in our charter that we don't sell parks. Again, I don't know how it got on here, but it doesn't seem to comport with what that use of that land currently is. So I would also recommend 16 come off of the land management plan until somebody has some other plan for it. Number 42, 47. These are the areas around the interchange of I-11 and US 95. Again, that's come up in conversation earlier tonight that we're not considering developing that land at this point. If that's the consensus that we're not considering it, then again, I believe it should come off of our land management plan. And similarly with 48, this is the area that's out past the Rifle and Pistol Club, 1,100 acres. Again, there does not appear to be any appetite for somebody to develop that land. If there is, I certainly haven't been informed of it. So I would be okay with those that I've just mentioned then coming off of the land management plan this year. If somebody wants to come and make another application, they're free to do that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right, so numbers 10, 16, 42, 47, 48. So the 42, 47, and 48 are out. They are actually on the urban area map, but they're on the outline areas of that towards I-11. Actually 48's over by the gun club, I believe, right? And then 10 and 16. 10 is up by industrial. 16 is the water filtration plant. So I don't have a problem with any of those coming off. The water filtration plant obviously is one that has been discussed. I don't even know what community necessarily means, but I assume there will be further discussion on that one anyway to come back to once we determine as a community what we want to do with that, it would need to come back for further discussion through the land management process anyway, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I'd be okay with pulling any of those off. I don't see any urgency to keep them on. Further discussion, Mr. Harhe.
The memorandum was dated January 15th. Today's January 22nd. That means only the people who downloaded the packet would have received the information on the proposal that these parcels have been removed. And, we're struggling to be a transparent city government, and I would have thought that we don't pull the trigger after this thing has been out only available for a couple of days. I'd like to go down and talk with some folks and talk about these parcels, whether they should be included or not, other than by fiat say remove these. I would think that we need at least a modicum of time to evaluate it. But I will congratulate Mr. McManus for pointing out, I believe, a hole in our land management process. It's pretty evident how that works from our recent 676-acre request with the folks next to Techron. The fact that it comes to council, and I would think if it's out of hand to begin with, the initial applicants would be told so by yourself or whoever was receiving the document. And however, if that didn't work and it slipped through and it came to council, well, the council again sees this, and if it doesn't make any sense, it doesn't comply with our master plan, it dies there. But if they think, yeah, well, this is okay, so we got at least two opportunities, two gatekeepers, then we send it down to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission holds an open hearing, so the folks, the interest of people, yes, for or not, speak out. And kind of interesting on that Silver Peak deal, I got a couple hundred signed petitions here of people that said, no, we don't want it. And the Planning Commission listened and said, we don't recommend it. So then it comes back to council, the last gatekeeper, and says, we agree with the Planning Commission and the people. And at that time, it became so obvious that it was going to fail that the proposer withdrew the application before council considered it. But it could have come to council, and that's the last hope. But they got 4 or 5 gatekeepers in the process to eliminate the frivolous nature. Now, in the past, I would agree that some of these things have been included, but that was in the past, and which points out the big deficiency in my mind is that, yes, we have a very structured system to put the parcels in the land management plan, but there's no corresponding procedure really for removal other than the council to see a list or be given a list. I think if you want to do it appropriately, in my mind, is you just reverse the process, and that it goes before the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission recommends to remove it from the land management plan. And again, we've got a number of gatekeepers at both ends to listen to the public, get the public's view, and then make a decision. So I think there's a wrong there in terms of our process, and I think it's missing a part. And the future council may want to talk about how do we make this thing work without hiccups and pain and so forth on both ends, of both adding parcels, which is pretty much well defined in my mind, and removing parcels, which is kind of undefined right now.
Thank you. Councilwoman Levin.
If you don't mind, I would just like to make one clarification about that. The reason for the date of the memo being the 15th, that's the last date that information can be submitted for inclusion in this meeting's packet. The effort is so that we do have limited time here at these council meetings to discuss these things. My intent in having that included in the packet is so that each of the council members can take a look at that, because it's a lot of material to digest, but it's also to let the community know at least what my thinking is without going into even a greater length than I have tonight. So again, that's the reason for the timing of those things, is to have that material included in the packet.
Councilwoman Levin.
Mr. Mayor, I concur with some of these parcels and have a couple of my own as well, but I just want to comment on what Councilman McManus said, because with respect to his memorandum, so that that the residents know what he's thinking about this. And when I was reading that, I do think that there's we've talked about this before, I don't know how many times before, but we do need to change the name of this because people misunderstand the process, and it should be called the land management process or something like that. But I don't think it's helpful or appropriate to malign people who have come before the Planning Commission and the City Council with their proposals, because this has been the process, nor to question the motives or the competency of the Planning Commission or even the council by how this has been handled, because this has been the process for a long time. I do think that there should be a mechanism in place, like 3 years or 5 years or whatever, if it's been on the land management plan, that we look at that, and if there hasn't been any action, that we take it off. But I don't think it's helpful to criticize people who've been in the process in past years, because that was the process. That's what we did. And I was thinking about it today, and we've changed a lot of processes in the last few months, making efficiencies, making things better, doing things differently. Well, let's do this differently and do it in a way that's more efficient and more reflective of what's going on. I think we can do that without casting stones.
Mr. Schuman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's so interesting. I remember my first year on council was, I think, 2016, and I remember going through this land management process and saying, you know, just trying to make sense of it, kind of like we're doing tonight. And it's interesting, the conversations we had back then. But let me ask you a question first, Mr. Mays. Is this process specific to applicants? I mean, do we have? My recollection is it didn't have to be somebody applying to do a project before it came on here. We could just put anything on there. We just said, oh, there's a good infill piece right there. Let's put that on the plan.
In the past, it has been applicants as well as the city with proposals for addition to the LMP.
Okay. I think in the past we've even seen who the applicant was. And so my recollection, I could be wrong about this, was that back in 2017, it was explained to me as a new councilman that this process is to open up dialogue about certain parcels of property around Boulder City, whether there was a future in doing something with it or not. I remember having this discussion. In order to even discuss it, it had to be on the land management plan. This is what was told to me. And I remember maybe debating some of my fellow council members that, well, we can talk about any piece of land we want, anytime we want. It doesn't have to be on the LMP. And we kind of went back and forth about that a little bit, and it was slightly confusing. And then I see here that in 2017, we added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parcels. And I remember sitting at this meeting, this same time of year, and picking out pieces that we wanted to maybe futurely discuss. I think it might have been Brock had something to do with this, and we were just picking out pieces that might be a good infill piece. And yeah, let's add that one, let's add that one, let's add that one. And now tonight we're saying, okay, let's delete that one, let's delete that one, and I wonder if next year we're going to say, well, maybe let's add this one. And it just, the process is a little crazy. Let me ask you, did the Planning Commission, 7 members, just push this entire plan through without any removals or additions?
The process as structured is that the City Council directs to the Planning Commission applications, and they consider those applications. Now, you may recall in 2017, for the staff recommended removals, the City Council at that time had specifically asked for Planning Commission input on those removals, but that's not part of the normal process.
Okay. So this LMP, was it presented in this form to the Planning Commission?
Correct. The maps and the corresponding list was all presented as background information, but they were asked to specifically look at the one petition.
Just applicants on a case-by-case basis rather than the whole.
Correct.
The whole plan. Okay. Which is an interesting component to this whole discussion too. Why don't they look at it in the same holistic fashion that we do? Another thing that maybe, as Councilwoman Levitt pointed out, we can fix in the process moving forward, which I'd be in favor of fixing this process. I rely on staff a lot for this. Is the way I approach it. Does staff have some reason that they think this piece of property should be on there? Is there some future with it? Is there some idea coming? Is there? We're not privy to every single inquiry that comes before the city. So I rely on staff a lot, and I expect staff to come to this day and this meeting with suggested removals and additions. In fact, I think I've seen that in the past, that staff is recommending removal of these 6 parcels. Tonight's a little different because there was a memo on the 15th, of which, quite frankly, I didn't read until not too long ago. And as Councilman Harhe said, really haven't had a chance to weigh in on and to hear from the residents on. So I'm confused by the process, and I don't know if I'm totally comfortable removing pieces. I know Councilwoman Levitt said she might have a couple extra pieces to remove. Does that mean, is there any more that need to be added? Are we just talking removals tonight?
We would only be talking removals. You would need to start the process again for additions that would go back to the Planning Commission for consideration.
Okay. And if we are to talk about these parcels, it's been explained to me many years ago, or a few years ago, that in order to discuss it, it needs to be on the land management plan. Where I sort of fought back on that and said, well, we can talk about any piece of land that we want. So I'm not comfortable totally moving forward, just removing 30% of the land management plan tonight unless we have a further, deeper discussion about each one of these parcels one by one. And that's my feeling on it as of now.
All right, thank you. And so just to give my very quick 2 cents, which is, as I've seen the land management plan unfold over, or the process, if you want to call it that, which I think that's a more appropriate term for it, but it is called the plan. Over the last 7-8 years, it's just clear to me that not only does each individual council member have different notions about what this process is, but members of the public do as well. And so at best, I think that there is some confusion over it. As I view it, it is just a process whereby either council makes a recommendation or somebody proposes a use and council then forwards it out. But we do go through, sometimes it's a 6-month process. In 2017, it was a longer process than that. I think we took 9 months to go through the process at that point or more. It goes out to the Planning Commission. It goes, as Councilman Harhe pointed out, we've got these town hall meetings in 2017. It does not go on the plan until it comes back to council and council votes it onto the plan, and then it's on the plan. There's different notions about whether we should even entertain something going on the plan if it doesn't already comply with the master plan. And so anyway, with all these different notions about what it is, what it isn't, the plain fact is, if we don't like the way it is, we can change it. And, that would require us digging into the specifics of it and determining what we think needs to change about the process. And we're not going to accomplish that here tonight, but certainly we can go down that path. So we could, if we wanted to, table this decision for another meeting, correct, on what comes off if we wanted to?
That's correct.
Okay. So this is a public hearing item. I'll open it up to public hearing at this point.
But before we go to that step, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just comment on one thing. As far as casting aspersions or throwing stones or that type of thing, the reason for my language in that memorandum is I've been observing this process now for a decade. And quite honestly, it's been an exceedingly frustrating experience to watch what happens with this, then to attend the Planning Commission meetings and see planning commissioners who make absolutely no reference to master plan or why we want to do certain things within this community, but simply looking at things like, well, hey, if somebody's got an idea, let's go ahead and go for that. I think it's very important that when we have these things, especially in a city like Boulder City, where we want controlled growth, or at least the public has reinforced that for 40 years now, that we don't have a process like this or a experience like we're having again, where it's like, well, gee, I don't really understand this, or I don't understand what's going on. This is a significant thing, and to have planning commissioners not apply what our laws are is very frustrating. So the tone of the language is strong. It's intended to be strong. There's a purpose for it being strong. I'm very frustrated with this process and how land gets bandied about here in Boulder City.
All right, I'll open up the public hearing. Roseanne, please. Please state your name.
Roseanne Rabiola Mealy. As I look around, Chief, I'm the only one who was on staff when the land management plan was instituted. It was instituted by City Manager John Sullard. I was the public information officer. I cannot tell you every reason he instituted the plan. What I can tell you is that companies, big box stores, were coming to the city. And it was only after individual council members, you figure out the time frame from 2001 forward, would say, nope, we don't want that, nope, we don't want this, different projects. So John says he had been community development director. Now he's city manager, and he said, we're going to put together a land management plan. Because when I see people coming to the city, and they have these ideas, you weren't even here yet, you know, nobody here. They have these ideas. We have people saying, council people saying, nope, go away, we're not talking about anything. He says, let's put together a land management plan. People make application, they say, here's what I'm thinking, here's the land, this could be a good spot or not. Period. The end. Land management plan comes about. The farther we got away from it, the more years, we're now 18 years away. Councils didn't look at what was on, what got acted upon. Was it hanging around for 10 years? Nobody looked. Out of sight, out of mind. And until something happens that there's some kind of talk about or controversy about, just let it go on. But that is my very, very clear recollection of how the land management plan started as a means of telling the public, oh, somebody's interested in this. Let's take a look at it. The end.
Thank you. Anybody else? Judy.
Judy DeShane. I've been here for 5 years. I've gone to a number of planning commissions and people proposing, various things to do with a parcel of land. I've never really understood where they came up with these things, because it would be stuff that was way out of, far away from our center city or from our developed area. And our land management, our master plan says we will, start at the city center and build outward. But these things are just all over, and they were very large acreages. And it would seem that after just so long of them being there, and if nobody was interested over, say, 10 years or whatever, in doing whatever was proposed, nobody got the funding for it, or the interest in that particular activity died, which it does, things change, that we should have some mechanism for taking that off and opening it up again and having it just out there. Otherwise, there's really no way of telling. You guys have maps and whatever, but the general public doesn't, so we don't really have any idea of what's been proposed for where. And so I think, it needs to be straightened out somehow, and something put, in a logical manner, because I've never been able to really figure out what the hell was going on. Thank you.
Thank you. James.
James Adams. I just wanted to add that just in kind of the conversation of removing things from the land management plan, and should we do it now, should we do it later, all that sort of things. As was mentioned at the last council meeting, it was said that we really can't do anything about this now. It's been on the land management plan for the last 10 years, so essentially we've been saying this is a go-ahead. And because nobody came up and said anything then, we're kind of just tied to having to make that deal now. That's essentially what was explained, at least how I felt. I would just like to voice now my opinions. I marked down here, according to this map, it was parcels 42 and 47, which are right down there at the I-1193 change, and also 16, the water filtration plant, and parcel 48 down there by the rifle. Those were the areas that I noticed going in there that I thought they absolutely seem to have no reason. For me, I know specifically that there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of public comment already happened regarding that land down by the Four Corners, what was going to be the Gateway Center, and I think people made it pretty loud and clear that they did not want to see that developed, especially in the way that it's not zoned, but just in the way it's suggested as this light industrial or highway commercial. And then there's also been a lot of public opinion about the water filtration plant and wanting to see that preserved. And I think it definitely sends the wrong message if we retain a part of the land management plan specifically on that water filtration plant where they want to see the city's action, but having it, perhaps it doesn't actually mean anything because it all has to go. But it does send the wrong message that the city is maybe looking at it the wrong way, and that could be ignorance that people feel that way. But if you're not explaining these things to people, and people are saying, well, "What are we going to sell this? Are we going to?" There's a lot of confusion. So I'm just now making my voice heard, because I know there was concern that sometimes people aren't making that voice, and so it at least goes in the record that we should be removing 42 and 47. 48 and 16 from the land management plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and come back to council. Mr. Harre?
Yeah, my notice is actually this discussion is really rather unfocused, because it really splits into two different concepts. One is the process and how it can be modified and how it can be improved. And the other is the specifics of these land management plan, or whatever we're calling it this week. The thing is, in regards to the comments regarding the taking the parcels out, I strongly agree with having some side of sunshine provision, so that once these parcels are put into the pot, so to speak, they're not there for in perpetuity. And so I would think, I don't know what the date is or how long it is, but that should be kind of the overriding thing. Other thing, in terms of Mr. McManus spoke that the reason for doing the deal with our Silver Peak LLC was the fact that the point was made that, well, it's been in the land management plan and we must do the deal, or it's been in for so long. Now, actually, I spoke to that, and that was not the intention. I'm sorry if somebody took that as the takeaway. My intention was that it was put into land management plan a long, long time ago without any objection, and there had not been any objection up to the date that this deal was discussed. The real purpose or the real impetus for closing that deal or moving ahead is the fact that we're talking about an existing lease option. And we to the company that had purchased those rights from the prior lease option holder. So and given no opportunity during the process that there was any concern about change or use of that particular parcel. The other comment I just want to make, I kind of disagree with. In fact, I do disagree with criticizing people who have no opportunity to defend themselves or may longer be around. And in that regard, that doesn't mean we should disregard wrongdoing or things that we'd prefer to do a different way today. What we need to do is learn from that past and apply it to the future and to the present day. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Levitt.
Yes, I didn't... After my remarks, I didn't mention which parcels I thought should be removed. I agree with parcel 10, which is the crematory, and that has been built in Henderson. I also had a question at my briefing on 17, which is animal shelter or dog park or commercial light manufacturing, and that's been on the plan since 2005. We have an animal shelter. I think that could be taken off. And I had a question about parcel 56, which is on Walnut, and it's 25 acres, and so that's a fairly good size for outdoor recreational. Do you know what that is, Michael?
So there are several parcels that relate to the airport hangar and land in proximity to the airport hangar. Those include parcels 7, 8, 54, 27, and 56. And so that is in the area that, if you were to look at the urban area map.
I know.
And on the urban area map, you can see the references to 54, 8, 7, 56, and 27. So what that one specifically is, with respect to 56, is the roughly northwestern portion of that area in red. So north of Adams, obviously west of Buchanan and west of Walnut.
I noticed that it's a fairly recent addition, but I couldn't remember what was planned for that. So, and I don't think anybody else recommended that, but 10 and 17 are my recommendations.
Okay, so we have some recommendations. We can either entertain a motion to vote on those tonight, or we can...
Well, I would just like to make a comment. I mean, Mr. Schumann's already kind of expressed an interest, I believe, in taking a little longer to look at this. I'm fine with doing that. Again, my intent here with this process is to not just come and do what has been done for a considerable period of time. We need to take a look at this, and that was the reason for putting into that what I did. My apologies to Mr. Mays for having used a map that was a little out of date. But again, I'm fine if we want to take a little while to take a look at this. Again, Councilwoman Levitt has suggested a couple of others. I'm okay with doing it that way. I do think, though, this is important, especially in a city that has a controlled growth ordinance, that we take a look at these things and make clear and concise decisions as far as what we want to do with the land that we have.
Mr. Mayor, I'm okay with voting on this tonight, but I do think that we need to look at this as staff and rework this ordinance and rename it and put in some kind of a clause with respect to how long it's been on the land management process, or whatever we're going to call it. And also the way that it is now, it goes before City Council and then Planning Commission and back to City Council, which does allow more opportunities for public comment, because I think one of the things that was said, if I'm not mistaken, in Councilman McManus's memorandum is that, that the public doesn't have any say in this, or hasn't had any say, but they have had opportunities, at least in public meetings. So I don't know if we want to remove that other opportunity for public comment, because but I think we need to discuss, those are things that need to be worked out so that we have a more concise process, and all of us are on the same page, so there isn't so much confusion about it. But again, my point was confusing, or I don't know what the right word is, convoluted, as it may have appeared to people. This was the process for a long time, and it kind of rolled along. And I think that as we come up on these issues, we need to address them and fix them. So let's quit belly aching and fix it.
Okay. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I would propose that we direct the staff to come back at the next meeting and focus on the two elements of this. One, to focus on the process and how it could or should be modified in order to meet the needs of removal of these properties, so they're only the real active and the ones that could be active will remain, and perhaps the provision of sunshine. The process is separate, and then we get to the second directive to staff, which we're already pretty much there, but it gives the people an opportunity to take a look actually at these maps and maybe visit those areas. And the more information they have, and the more comfortable I have with people saying that, okay, we understand what you're doing. So I would say it's really two issues. One, specifics in terms of these this old stuff that's in the land management plan, and two is our process. I think those are two different issues, and those should be addressed separately at another meeting.
Okay, and I at least agree that they should be addressed separately. So in this particular land management cycle, this one, we are at the tail end of it, right, because we began this back in September-ish, I believe. And so I also think that if we're going to adjust the process, we probably need more time than just one meeting. And so I would suggest that as far as removing whatever we're going to remove, we can bring that back at the next meeting. But as far as the process goes, let's give them a little bit more time to come back with something. And, again, we're at the tail end of this year's process. We can bring it up in the middle of the year, but I don't think there's any urgency to get it done tomorrow. And I think if we're going to adjust the process, we ought to do it right. Yep.
Honorable Mayor and Council, perhaps maybe if the Council might consider as part of your recommendation that you approve the land management process plan annual review tonight. However, also caveat that by giving staff direction to go back, look at the process itself, and provide recommendations on updating that process, including looking at all the parcels that are currently on there that perhaps maybe ought to be considered for removal, given that there has been inactivity for a significant amount of time.
Is there any compelling reason why we need approval tonight?
Only that the ordinance requires annual review and for the council to approve.
Okay, but if we put this off to allow other council members to look at the parcels that have been suggested rather than doing an approval,
there shouldn't be any urgency.
Yeah, and I think that the council at any time can request removal of parcels, just like at any time.
Well, rather than approving, my preference would be if we do want to have people given a little more time to look at this, we can do that rather than giving an approval and say no, come back in 2 weeks and we'll take another look at it. Let's just wait 2 weeks and take another look at it.
Okay, so we've had some directive, it sounds like, to go look at the process. Do you need anything more on that? Do you need a formal vote on the directive?
You do, and just for clarification, I believe that the ordinance requires us to be approved by February 15th of every year.
Okay, so we would have one more meeting and we could do that. So I guess my motion would be then to bring the land management plan back for us at the next council meeting in terms of what another bite at the apple to approve the plan and also to remove whichever items, including those that have been suggested tonight, and then also a directive to staff to go ahead and look at the process, not necessarily to bring it back at the next meeting on the process.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. Next is item number 9 regarding the Utility Advisory Committee or creation thereof.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dennis Porter, Utility Director. When I started at the city not that long ago, towards the end of last year, the city manager directed me to take advantage of my experience and my knowledge and my working with utility advisory committees. Thank you. And to develop a couple of options to throw out for your consideration based on that experience and based on what the utility does and based on the current governmental structure of Boulder City. So what I have for you tonight is just a couple options that we'll talk about. I'll start first by going through the functions of the committee. And in general, and not limited to these functions, the committee would act as an official advisory body on the capital improvement program, planning, utility rates, etc. It would do an annual review of the 5-year capital improvement plan for water, sewer, power, and the landfill. It would annually review the utility revenue requirements of the utility and recommend to the city council and city manager rate adjustments that may or may not be required. Annually review the utility resource plans for water, sewer, electrical, the landfill, and annually review utility conservation plans, whether it's water conservation or electric conservation or whatever those programs may be. Option one, which I developed, was more of the formal option, which would be created by resolution, would adhere to the Boulder Charter and Code and Nevada revised statutes and open meeting laws. In this case, what I put together for you is something that's very common in the utility industry. It's common with these forms of governments, with the city manager, city council form of government. I've done them for the city of Phoenix, city of Henderson, familiar with the city of Tucson, and of course the water district's a little different because they're a district. The general manager sits as the ex officio, and there is no city manager to go through, so they look a little different. In this case, each council member would appoint one member, obviously a Boulder City resident, to the committee, and a quorum would consist of 3 members out of the 5. Terms of the office would be 4 years and be coterminous with that of the appointing council member. In this case, me, the utility director, would serve as a non-voting ex officio advisory committee member, obviously providing support to the committee with the number of materials that be requested and that we'd be analyzing or reviewing. Obviously, our job would be to inform and educate and provide those documentation. Advisory committee recommendations, once we got to where we were ready to do those, would be made directly to the mayor and city council through the city manager. And you can see that structure on the chart. So that would be option one, which I consider the more kind of formal option. Option choose, a little less formal. The committee members in this case would be appointed by the city manager. It does not have to be created. I guess I ought to go to that one, right? There you go. It does not have to be created by resolution, nor does it have to conform to open meeting laws. So again, that's the real reason it's less formal. The city manager would select 5 members, obviously residents, to the committee, and a quorum again would consist of 3 out of 5. And in those cases, those members would serve no more than 4 years per each member. And again, if the city manager happened to leave for whatever reason, then we would go back through a selection process for those new members. Sorry about that. In this case, again, the utility director would serve as the non-voting ex officio advisory committee, serving those same functions: staff support, providing documentation, whatever questions were asked, we would be providing details, going through all the technical resources, technical plans, capital improvement plans, water resource plans, all those types of tasks. And at that point in time, once the committee had been through that process, which can be lengthy, and it's depending just how much source documents we have and how much time it would take to put that information together for the committee. It could be shorter for some things and longer for others. At the end of the day, the advisory committee would make recommendations to the city council or to the city manager, which he and forth would bring to the city council. So I'm here to answer any questions, take any comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions, comments? Mr. Ray.
Well, first off, this is my baby. And last year, at the end of the year when we first talked about it, I thought it was stillborn when we left the conversation. And I'd like to thank the city manager for reviving the issue as he committed to bring it back once we had the utility director. So I want to thank him for keeping his word and the due diligence in that regard. In terms of the actual proposal that's been set forward, my takeaway is that